I don't have much of a voice at times, so.
Whisper loudly.
There's the hard copy when it's.
Yeah, I never read it. I haven't read
Are you gonna do, are you gonna be people in 1,000 people?
Well, we'll discuss that when we get to the meeting, so, yeah, just hang on.
All right.
You guys all get that extra copy of the last month's meetings, and an email, okay. The real version.
Yeah.
Read it, but take a copy of them off, so you can make them look good.
Very close enough.
Yeah, that's right.
It's more the same. Yes. Saturday night, about midnight. We had a problem with the truck.
Are you ready, Lisa?
Yes, I just turned it on.
If I can have everybody's attention, we're gonna go ahead and start the monthly meeting of the Raleigh County Planning Board and Board of Zoning Appeals. At this time, I'm gonna read the rules for the public comment session this evening. I guess just make sure you listen to everything I got to say. Excuse me for my voice, it's kind of on the fritz. The following applies to all meetings of the Raleigh County Planning Board and Board of Zoning Appeals. Public comments shall be limited to no more than 5 minutes for each speaker. The time limit does not include questions asked by the board. The chair reserves the right to extend the speaker's time should the situation be warranted to do so. Number 2, all comments should be directed to the board. Number 3, all speakers must go to the podium to make their comments, state their full name, address before beginning. Number 4, public comment shall be made only during the designated time on the agenda at the public meeting. Public comments are out of order if made outside the designated time of the agenda for the public meeting and without the speaker having first recognized by the chair. Number 5, remarks of individual speakers shall not be simply repetitively of identical comments made by the prior speaker. Number 6, verbal or visual personal attacks on private citizens, staff, or board members shall not be allowed. Speakers who violate any one or more of these rules will be asked to end their comment, and the speakers or non-speakers who attend the meeting whose conduct disrupted the orderly and dignified comments of the public meeting at that time will be asked by the chair to leave the meeting. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, each month we open up for public comments. This is something other than what's on the agenda tonight. If somebody has something that does not pertain to tonight's agenda, you can go up to the podium, state your name and address. So if none being, we'll go ahead with our consent agenda for this evening. To consider the minutes of the March 11th, 2024 meeting. Does the,
I move approval of the minutes of the March meeting.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded that we approve the March 11th meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried 4-0. Now, the second item under the consent agenda is to consider the report of fees for the month of March. Does any of the board members have any questions for the report of fees?
Nope.
Joe? I have none either. Do I have a motion to accept those?
I'm going to accept the report of fees for the month of March.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the report of fees for the month of March. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried 4-0. All right. Since we don't have any, since we don't have any general agenda items for the Riley County Board of Zoning Appeals, do I have a motion to move on to the Raleigh County Planning Board?
I'll make that motion.
So second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing of the Raleigh County Board of Zoning Appeals and open the meeting for the Raleigh County Planning Board. So at this time, Bob, or
Cameron Wink,
yes,
when we get to item number 4,
yes,
I'm gonna abstain from that vote because
Oh, okay.
I'm on that solid waste management committee that drafted the document. So
okay,
I think that would be a little bit of a conflict if I voted
okay,
to prove something I was involved in.
all right, thank you. All right. We'll start out with item number 1 this evening on the Raleigh County Planning Board agenda. Excuse me if I misspell your last name, Troy Coberly, is that correct? Coberly. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I appreciate you all attending the meeting tonight. I just wanted
You
to
need
go
to
through.
state your name and
Okay.
et cetera.
Troy Coberly, 5304 Terra Heights Drive, Manhattan. Speaking on behalf of some of the neighbors in our Terra Heights neighborhood dealing with short-term rentals. We put together at least 4 recommendations regarding the land use regulations and just went through a slide presentation. So most of this is referring to table 5-1 and 5.2 AC short-term rentals. In dealing with the Riley County Planning and Development Commission, they talk about being able to coordinate and adopt and preserving the development as far as the community and promoting that highest quality of life in present and future citizens is one of the issues that we're having. Along with that, short-term rental properties often use this as a supplemental income, which has impacted property values. The single family ownership is out of reach due to that high retail value of that commercial business and operating in the residential neighborhood. And these short-term rental property owners benefit from the aesthetics of a quiet, peaceful neighborhood without having to experience experience the nuisances. In Article 1, the purpose and intent of the regulation, they talk about, again, public health and safety dealing with Riley County. Dealing with the purpose of the exact short-term rental. There again, we're dealing with trying to facilitate those short-term rentals in that neighborhood and still retain the character of their residential neighborhood, which I think has been extremely difficult for some of those. But the short-term rental license allows those property owners to rent their property without the on-site agent or a general manager as similar to a bed and breakfast. This opens up to the surrounding neighbors to a host of continued nuisances with excessive traffic, excessive demands on critical infrastructure, such as water and sewage, excessive noise and disturbance, along with continued demands and lack of enforcement. And I believe that's one of the biggest downfalls with this regulation is just the lack of enforcement because of not having a zoning regulations in the county does not offer an actual enforcement to go out and police some of these short-term rentals. But I believe that we cannot justify that cost of benefiting a narrow few at the expense of many surrounding neighborhoods who purchase those homes for that quiet and beauty. And I believe at this time, based on what Amber, the director, had said at the previous meeting, that there was approximately 18 short-term rentals throughout the unincorporated area of the county. And that's 18 based on population roughly of 18,000. So it's very few, but causing issues with surrounding neighbors. And the first recommendation is removing that short-term rental from all residential zonings. And I believe that that's one of the biggest things that we need to do to remove it from, especially that's F1 through 3, and still allow it into ag, agro, and university as far as residential zoning. But I believe if we could remove that from the individual neighborhoods and in the actual communities, then I think we could get away from a lot of our issues. And then just a brief look. Here's 14 that I've plotted throughout the county. The farthest is up to the north on Fancy Creek Road. And then down on the south is Rosencutter Road. Those two properties are out in the rural setting. The neighbors are probably half mile or maybe a mile in distance. As where the majority, the other two that are, or the others that are on Wildcat Creek and then Anderson. But the others are located along the west side of Tuttle Creek Lake. And that's where we have most of the subdivisions in the neighborhoods. And here's up at University Park, where there's at least 2 up there known that's licensed. And I believe the one on, I believe it's on Rimrock is the one that there's another issue or quite a bit of issues up there. And then in the red highlighted one is the 5305 Terra Heights, and that's across the street from our home. Currently that's an unlicensed short-term rental, which there again, trying to get some of the short-term rentals to comply with when they are licensed is difficult, but when they choose not to license themselves, it makes it even more difficult. And second recommendation, there I want to talk about replacing Article 5.2 ACA. Currently, it's a notice of approval. And what I'm requesting or recommending is that we change the verbiage as well as also run it through on a conditional uses. Currently on notice of approval, when it goes through the planning and zoning, with Bob and with Amber, I believe that that is already developed to where when it meets their criteria, then the notification goes out to the surrounding neighbors. And currently, the way the regulation states it's supposed to go to adjacent neighbors, and I believe that it's going to adjoining. So if any neighbors across the street or within surrounding areas are not getting notified. And I believe if we could change that to a notice of application to where they would actually be notified prior to the approval of the license, and we would actually be notified by mail as well as by newspaper. But that 1,000-foot radius is a big, it's a critical thing dealing with. Once you've got the short-term rental in your neighborhood, it's difficult to deal with. Here again, there's just a public hearing notice dealing with conditional uses as both mailing and newspaper. Currently, that's showing licenses does not get notified, but I do believe it's mailed. Okay, and the third recommendation, this is adding to the AC3 license requirement. And here I believe that if we can get down to actually stating the exact, I guess the inter-office procedures is what's being done, such as if the Riley County Planning Compliance Specialist, which I believe is Darren Hobbs, I believe if there was an investigation of a property owner that's suspected of operating outside of that license, I believe that we need to go through the proper procedures to be able to cease and desist. And then if those documents or if those property owners do not comply, then going through the court system. And I believe there's an inter-office process that's already developed, but I believe that it needs to be in the regulation so that anybody going through this could actually see what's going to happen. And I think that's the big thing is trying to get somebody to comply and trying to speed up that process as opposed to, because we know that the court systems are going to be a lengthy process. And the fourth recommendation is adding to Article 5.2 AC 4H in this standards and quiet hours. In here, I'd like to look at when there is a noise complaint that has resulted in involvement with the Riley County Police. The Riley County Compliance Specialist will investigate and follow up with the complaining party or the neighbors, and then they will assess violations and or revoke a license pending the investigation. And just to give you a brief summary of some of the homes, this is the Castle property that's across the street from our home. And this is all taken off of VRBO for rental purposes. But they're stating it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, sleeping 12. And even according to regulations, I believe that the max they could sleep was 11. You open up and scroll down through, they've got enough beds for 20. And so then you get into issues of one or two of the bedrooms are probably non-compliant with egress standards and dealing with windows and with fire supplemental warnings and stuff. So even though a lot of people think that the short-term rentals are 3 bedrooms with just a few people staying, this turns into more of a party house, excessive people, and getting back to the nuisances. There again, with the rentals, we had a rental this weekend, at least 14 cars, and 1 to 2 people in each car spent the night there or spent the weekend. So it's a busy place. We have another home that's Cozy Lake Cottage. There again, 3 bedrooms, sleep 6. It's all within regulation. And then you open it up, sleeping, 5 beds or more. And then we get into, this property here, just on the west side of Manhattan. It's actually a beautiful property, sits on 250 acres with pool and hot tub. And this, I believe, would be a great property for short-term rentals. They don't have existing neighbors around them or relatively close. So it's not really affecting too much of the neighbors. So it's much more reasonable, but, and then we get into, luxurious duplex. Here, a duplex is a 5-bedroom, sleeps 13. There again, you get into your 6 beds. There's a lot of people in those homes. And then these last 2 properties are actually 1-bedroom, sleeping 2. And the only issue I would have is both charming bed and bath, and then the luxury bed and bath. Those 2 suites are actually operated, I believe, out of the same home. And I'd have to have some clarification with Bob, but I believe that according to the regulation, you're only able to have 1 short-term rental under 1 household. But there again, that's what we're seeing, is that there's a lot of things that are maybe not outside of the regulation, but it creates more problems. And in closing, I'd like to recommend the Riley County Planning and Development Board accepts the 4 recommendations to amend as well as continue to enforce the short-term rental licensing regulations for all current licensing holders. And that is it. Do you have any questions?
Eric, any questions?
Are there any parking requirements that you know of in the regulations for these houses, or are they just parking along the street?
I believe, according to the regulation, Bob can verify, but I believe it's supposed to have a parking space per bedroom. So if it's listed as a 3 or 4 bedroom, then they would have to have 3 or 4 off-street parking. And there again, in our subdivisions, they may be able to have, which they fit 14 vehicles on the property in their parking area. But when it extends, we've had parking as far as 25 to 30. And even though there's no regulation or anything with street parking, it's all legal with that. The main thing there is just to not block the road of any police or emergency use. So the parking issue isn't too much of a complaint. It's just the excessive traffic, noise.
Bob, question for you. Septic requirements, when they're approved for a residential house, are they approved for that many occupants?
Yep.
Okay.
They're gonna.
Jack, you got questions?
No.
Here's my notes to Bob. What is, what is expenditure this board to do now? We can't really change the regulations, can we?
You're just here to listen.
Just to listen
Yes,
and what.
And provide recommendations.
at this point, you're just here to listen and then instruct staff later if you feel as a board that you want to follow these recommendation or change the regulation for whatever reason. And we would come back to the board with the language as you see fit.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe it would fall under like text amendments as far as updating an amendment to the regulation, in which there's a whole, if I'm correct, I believe there's a 2-page procedure in which the whole process is to be done in order to get that changed.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
I was gonna ask you if you have anything else.
No, I just,
If nobody's got any more questions for him, that's, we'll go from there, so.
all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, question? I can't swear. you go ahead and open it up to the public, within 1,000 feet, that's what,
Yeah.
it's not public hearing, it's just a recommendation, so, okay. All right, so,
So does anyone else want to speak on it? It's up to the board if you want to let them.
how does the board
That took
feel?
more than 5 minutes, so I think we've been fully briefed on
Yeah.
what the recommendation is.
So, I guess we will, close the public. Comment, well, what, we don't, don't need to do that. Can, so just go ahead and we can discuss things between ourselves here now. And so, okay, we're gonna just have a discussion between the four of us up here. So, any comments or anything, you guys just need to refrain
Yeah,
from.
one of the reasons I asked the
Eric, go ahead.
questions is that, if we've already got things on the books that can cover this, we want to use those first before we consider recommendations for changes. And I think we need to talk to the fire chief too
Yeah.
about occupancies and
Yeah.
numbers and types of egress and fire protection and all that kind of stuff too.
Right.
Because I think that's covered also that needs to be looked at. But after we've considered that, then I think I want to think about it a little more about the recommendations.
Sure.
Like when they look at enforcement too, I mean, we can make all the regulations we want, but
Right.
we can't enforce them. What good are they doing?
That's right. Because I mean, Darren, he's full workload. I know he talked about, the police, Raleigh County Police is very understaffed. I mean, Joe, how do you,
This is not the first time in short-term rentals come before the board in one fashion or another.
right,
I think our planning department needs to take a look at these and see if some of them can be. There's gonna be some changes made. We've proved that over and over again. Things need to change. I don't want to recommend any of these things that we do that, but I think somebody needs to look at it. Bring it back to us. Like Bob said. Changes that we might want to make.
right. I mean, have Darren do a little bit and Bob do a little bit bigger, deeper digging into apparently what's going on, I guess. Here, I mean, it sounds like, this is the only place we've had any issues in the county with the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Check into the light, make sure the as it was alluded in here that the one wasn't licensed. So we need to do a little bit more deeper digging into that and some of the other things too. So,
So I wanna shed a little bit of light on this.
yes, go ahead, Rob.
One is not the only one that we've had issues with, where people are near it and the people that are tenants to these short-term rentals, sometimes it's quite inert. It's quiet, everyone gets along and until anyone's even there. And then you got what Mr. Coverly mentioned as like a party house. And it's simply abuse of the what's allowed in the zoning. So through the zoning, through the licensing, it's designed to kind of keep it in check. With someone or some people want to abuse that and simply violate the zoning, that can happen. Not just these, and other things as well.
Mhm.
And it's not really a matter of workload, it's a matter of how they're set up. So, yes, this one is a situation where a property owner had a license and was running it, and then they decided to sell the house. And these licenses are not transferable.
Okay.
So we notified the current owner of the property. And we have a process built in as it deals with most zoning violations, if not all the same process. Send them a friendly letter and let them know that they're in violation, they need to take care of business. And if we don't hear back from them, then we send out, that first violation, and then we give them some time to either get the mail or figure out something or abate the violation, whatever that may be. And then we send out a second or a final notice. And then after that, we go through legal and then we go into the injunction process. That's with all zoning violations. In some cases, in this particular format, if they decide to no longer rent, let's say they decide they don't want to get a license, they don't want it to be, no longer want to be a short-term rental. And according to Mr. Coberly, that's not what's happening here, but I'm just saying. Then they abated the violation of not having a license by not doing the activity. So there's a few levels of logic as far as the recommendations and what the process is. Some of the stuff we're already doing, just don't know it. But it is something we need to discuss with the board, show you what would work, what won't work as part of this, and why it goes this particular path rather than some other path. And then we can discuss that with staff and come up with some remedies, perhaps. That's all I have for that.
So I take it from the board here that we'll just need to do some investigation.
And listen to what, let the staff
Yep,
develop it a little more.
yep. There. So, okay, that's what we'll do. So, all right. Second item this morning, yeah, I wish. Second item this evening on the agenda is a public hearing to consider the request of Richard Hood petitioner in Lakeview Edition. Bob, would you like to give us your,
Take on it?
yes.
Let's go with that. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Richard and Mitzi L. Hood have made application with Riley County Planning and Development requesting to replat lots, Lot A, Lakeview Addition Unit 3, and Lot 28, Lakeview Addition into a single lot. The subject site is generally located approximately 300 feet north of the intersection of Buffalo Road and Cliffside Drive on the west side of Cliffside Drive. I don't hit that. Okay, the subject, the property consists of lot 28, platted as part of Lakeview Addition in April 1959, and lot A, platted as part of Lakeview Addition Unit 3 in June of 2001. Lot A is developed with a single-family dwelling built in 2001. The applicant wishes to replat vacant lot 28 together with lot A to enlarge its existing home lot. The property was originally zoned A1 single-family residential during the 1974 zoning conversion process. The zoning district was renamed to SF2 single-family residential in January of 2022. There are no variances, special uses, or conditional uses associated with the site. Current zoning is suitable for the request. The Riley County Fire District Number 1 will continue to serve the site. The nearest county fire station is the Tuttle Creek Fire Station located at 4120 Highway 13. The subject site is located within 5 road miles of a fire station. This is the final plat illustrating the orientation and location of the new lot's boundaries. There are no utility easements that will be vacated with this replat. The common lot line between these two lots will be eliminated. The property is in compliance with the sanitary code. A few pics of the site. This is looking northwest, southeasternmost point of the lot 28 Lakeview Addition. Although vacant and covered with several mature trees, the applicant has taken extremely good care of the private forest here. Establishing myself further north on Cliffside Drive, this is looking across lot 28 at existing lot A, which is developed with the applicant's single family dwelling. A little closer look here. This is the last house on the left on Cliffside Drive. This picture shows the home and the sloping cul-de-sac terminus of Cliffside Drive. Staff recommends that the planning board approve the final plat of Lakeview Addition Unit 5, as it has been determined that it meets the minimum requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Code. Do you have any questions for me? Great, in my presentation on this one.
Eric, do anything from Bob?
Nope.
Joe?
No questions?
Jack? No. All right, at this time is the applicant. If so, would you like to say anything or not? If not, we'll move on. It's real simple. Okay. All right. Is there, oh, yes, go ahead. State your
Bob
name.
wants me to say something.
Go ahead and state your name and
Richard Hood, 5513 Cliffside Drive. Yeah, the main reason we want to do this is we're getting older. It's really for our kids. It's after the lateral field changes about 25 years ago. Essentially, it's a dead lot. You can't put laterals on it now. And, you know, as we get older, we're thinking, well, if something happened to us, then, you know, the kids have got a dead lot they're going to try to have to get rid of somehow. So it's a simplification for the kids, really. They can sell one sale and they're done. And that's pretty well it.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess at this time, I'll ask, is there any proponents within 1,000 feet? Are there any proponents,
The opponent.
opponents within 1,000 feet? All right, if I see none, do I have a motion to close the
So-
public hearing?
So moved.
Now, second.
It's been moved 4-0 to close the public hearing. Motion's been made and seconded that we close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Start with you, Eric.
It makes common sense. I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah. All right, and we've been doing quite a few of these. It seems like the last couple of years, and I know a couple of you guys are relatively new, but yeah, it's good, just good house cleaning. So, okay, that being said, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the request replat Lot A, Lakeview Addition Unit 3, and Lot 28, Lakeview Addition Inter Single Lot, to be known as Lakeview Addition Unit 5, as it has been determined that it meets the requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations.
Okay, no, a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we move to approve the request to replat Lot A, Lakeview Drive, Unit 3, Lot 28, Lakeview Addition into one single lot known as Lakeview Addition Unit 5, as it is determined that it meets the Riley County Land Development Regulations. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried forward. All right. Thank you, sir. Good luck.
One more.
Yeah, I know. Give me a minute. Okay. We'll move on to our third agenda item this evening.
Before you do though, sir.
Oh, yes, you got some.
Like
Announcements to make,
announcements
yes.
here. The Board of County Commissioner will hear this request on April 22nd at 9:15 a.m. here in these chambers.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to our third item of business this evening. Open up the public hearing for the request of Jeremy and Tiffany Veggie
Agent.
Veggie petitioners Petition 24-3 or 031. Bob. Bob,
He's grabbing.
No.
I thought maybe you left.
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Once again, good evening, folks. Jeremy and Tiffany Fajan have made application with Raleigh County Planning and Development requesting approval to rezone a tract of land from AG Agricultural District to SF1 Single Family Residential and rezone Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1 from SF3 Single Family Residential to SF1 Single Family Residential and plat said tract and Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1 together into a single lot. It's a lot more simpler than it sounds. The 4.75 acre subject site is generally located approximately 1,140 feet east of Falcon Road on the north side of Madison Road, abutting the city limits of Riley. The subject property consists of Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1 platted in June of 1978 and a portion of a 13.6 acre unplatted parent tract. Pamela M. Fajan, the applicant's mother, wishes to continue her small agricultural operation on the remainder of the parent tract and has received preliminary approval for an agricultural exemption from the platting requirements. The applicant wishes to combine Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1 and a small portion of the aforementioned 13.6 unplatted parent tract into a single lot and rezone the property to SF1 in order to build a house. Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1 was rezoned from G1 General Agricultural to A2 Single Family Residential in 1976. The unplatted portion of the subject property has been zoned agricultural since at least 1974. There are no variances, conditional uses, or special uses associated with the site. Raleigh County Fire District Number 1 will continue to serve the site. The nearest county fire station is the Riley Fire Station, located at 327 North Main Street in the city of Riley. The subject site in its entirety consists predominantly of grasses with a row of mature cedars lining the north line of current Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision Number 1. A portion of the west half of Lot 2 is located within an unnumbered age zone, which essentially is the 1% annual chance floodplain with no base flood elevation shot, like you see in the red hatch pattern. But again, that will not impact the proposed development. Second order stream shown here in green runs along the far western boundary of the subject site, which is responsible for the unnumbered A zone floodplain shown previously. This drainage is a tributary to Wildcat Creek. The lot will be subject to the riparian buffer requirements of section 6.3 of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations. According to the most recent Flint Hills Joint Land Use Study, the subject site is located within the land use planning zone. Officials from Fort Riley have reported that according to Fort Riley's installation operational noise management plan of 2015, noise sensitive land uses such as housing, schools, medical facilities, churches, etc. are generally acceptable within the LPUPZ. The subject site is subject to the notice of potential noise impacts from Fort Riley, Kansas military installation and recommended noise attenuation building methods recorded on August 17th, 2020 in the Office of the Register of Deeds. This is the final plat of the property showing the new boundaries of the plot. Again, this is Lot 2 of Bowman Subdivision, zoned SF3, single family residential. This is the unplatted portion the applicant wishes to add to Lot 2, Bowman Subdivision. It's currently zoned AG Agricultural District as mentioned previously. The request is to replat the two tracts of land together into one and rezone the property to SF1, single family residential to match. The request is in compliance with the Raleigh County Sanitary Code. 'Cause The request was reviewed with the 2009 Vision 2025 Raleigh County Comprehensive Plan, and specifically the Development Guidance System found in Chapter 12. The first element of the DGS is conformance to the goals, objectives, and policies of the plan. The Vision 2025 amendments to the zoning regulations allow for these types of requests, which is consistent with the goals and objectives and policies of the plan. The second element is the future land use map. According to the plan, the subject property is located within a designated growth area. The third element is the land evaluation site assessment, or LISA. Due to the nature of the request, LISA was not generated. And finally, the hardship factor, the applicant did not express that an unnecessary hardship would be incurred if the request were to be denied. But the staff concluded that the request is consistent with the goals and objectives of the plan. Couples, pics of the subject property. This is looking west, down Highway 24, the intersection there of Madison Road and Falcon Road. This is the southeast corner of the subject site. Or this is, I guess, essentially in its entirety, lot 2 of existing lot, or lot 2 of Bowman subdivision. Just turning to my right, or slightly more north, another look at the platted lot. And this is looking north down the private drive that serves the current property owner, Pam Pagin. The fenced area demarcates the northern property line of lot 2. See the fence. Incidentally, this was dedicated for public access, although it's not wide enough to be defined as a street. So that's not considered a public street, even though it has a public easement going across it. And this is a portion of the unplatted hay meadow, constitutes the northern portion of the proposed lot. And finally, looking north again, this is the east property boundary of proposed lot 1 of Phagan Farmhouses subdivision. The lot will not be served by this road. As mentioned, the proposed driveway that will serve this lot is actually shown on the final plat and will be subject to the driveway standards in the unincorporated area of Raleigh County, Kansas. So staff recommends the planning board forward a recommendation of approval of the request to rezone the subject property to the Board of County Commissioners, as it has been determined that it meets or that is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan, meets the minimum requirements of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Code. Staff also recommends that the planning board approve the concurrent plat Phagan Farmhouse subdivision, as it has been determined that it also meets the minimum requirements of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Code. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me, those for you.
Eric?
Do we have an idea of where the development area is around Riley?
As far as the designated growth area, yes, we do. It's actually mapped on the GIS website.
Okay. And is it further north than this, I assume?
Yeah.
All right.
It's well within it.
Okay.
Joe?
And other questions.
Jack?
You have no questions?
Yeah, I guess, so the house, the greenhouse that we've seen, that's just on the north side of the AGSF 1,
So here's the farmhouse currently.
the greenhouse that we just seen in the picture.
Yeah, that's what.
Okay, all right.
I must be. Right now. Here. Give this. Thank you. Okay, yeah, the house is, that's not a house, that's a garage.
Okay.
And
Okay, the house is back up there. Okay, there it is, back up there.
The
Okay.
mother's house.
Okay, all right, good enough. Okay,
That's north of the
problem. Yeah,
proposed area.
that's on, it just sets right over the line then. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Would is the applicant here if they'd like to say a few words or so? Head on up there.
Jeremy Fajan, 209 Bergston Court in Riley. I'm a lifelong Riley County resident. My mom, who owns the property that I'd like to take a portion of, is recently widowed. My dad passed away a little over 15 months ago, and she's retired, and she relies heavily on the agricultural production of her land. And being the dutiful son that I am, I want to be close to her and support her because she provides that same level of support for me. I have a disabled child. Both my wife and I work full-time jobs, and she does a lot of support for my family. And so this would put us right next to each other to be as supportive as possible. She for my son, me for her agricultural production. And a lot's changed recently with also the passing of my dad, but also I got married just within the last year. And so my wife and I are looking to build our forever home and continue to raise our children. They're just north of Riley and continue to be a part of the community. So that's the purpose of this, and really looking forward to the chance of doing that.
Thank you. Would there happen to be any other proponents within 1,000 feet? Okay, any other opponents within 1,000 feet? If not, do I have a motion to close the public hearing so we can go into our deliberation mode?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing and go into our deliberation mode. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried 4-0. I'll just start here with you, Eric. You got any comments? Okay, Joe, any comments?
I think it's a great plan.
Right? Yeah.
I agree, it's a great plan.
So I don't have any issues with it. I think so. Looks like a good deal. So, okay. So we're going to be voting on two motions here. The first one will be for the rezoning and the second one will be for the replat. So
Actually, there's gonna be two motions on the rezoning.
there'll be two motions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, I got it. Okay, I'm just seeing it. Okay, so we'll have two.
One.
Okay, and then we'll just be one for the total replat. Okay, it's that one done then. Okay. So, on the first, rezoning, do I have a motion on the, rezoning from ag to SF1?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we move to forward the recommendation of approval to the Raleigh County Board of the Board of Commissioners of Raleigh County to rezone the subject property from AG Agricultural District to SF1 Single Family Residential. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Okay. Then we'll have our second rezone motion from SF3 to SF1.
I like the board recommendation of approval.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, the motion's been made to move to forward the recommendation of approval to the Board of Commissioners of Raleigh County to rezone the subject property of SF3 Single Family Residential to SF1 Single Family Residential. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, 4-0. Okay. Now we'll have our third motion here, and that will be for the replat of the area.
I'll move to approve the concurrent plat of Fajan Farmhouse subdivision as it has been determined that it meets the requirements of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations and the Raleigh County Sanitary Code.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved to approve the concurrent plat of Fajan Farmhouse subdivision as it has been determined that it meets the requirements of the Raleigh County Land Development Regulations and the Raleigh County Sanitary Code. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried 4-0. Bob?
Okay, the Board of County Commissioners will hear this request, May 2nd at 9:45 a.m. in these chambers. Yeah. That's all.
And afterwards, we have Mylars to sign or do.
We do that after.
Yeah, after, that's what I meant. Yeah, after the meeting. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yes, Joe.
Do we have to follow the order on the general agenda? We've got our audience out here waiting on, I think, I'm fine. Can we move it up? Or we have to.
Amanda wanted it before due to the length of
The
what's
rest of it, yeah.
number 5.
Yeah, we'll just keep with
Okay.
the plan, so, yeah. Okay, at this time, we're gonna move on to our fourth item of the Raleigh County Planning Board this evening. The 2024 Solid Waste Management Plan. As we all got a nice, big, thick book. Hope everybody's had time to read this from top to bottom.
I actually have a lot of it,
In your brain.
not being on the committee.
Yeah, I know. So, Bob, I guess we're turning it over to yours.
I think Amanda wanted to say a few things, but I'm not sure if we have,
Amanda's on.
I know she's on, but
I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
here she is.
Yes, Amanda, we can hear you.
Lisa.
All right, perfect. Okay, so good evening, Amanda Webb, Planning Director. I'm in the car and it's dark, so you only get to hear me, you don't get to see me, so apologies. So yes, we have our solid waste management plan, and just also a quick note, David Kreller, you might see him on Zoom as well. He is our solid waste management committee chair, so he is here to fill in any of the gaps that I might miss. So just kind of want to give you a little bit of background real quick on what your 100+ page document is that you're looking at. So we are required by KDHE to do what I would call a major update every 5 years. The last major update was 2019. Of course, that would make this one due middle of next month to KDHE 2024. We do review and update annually as needed, but they're usually fairly small changes. If we make much of anything, we save the real meat of the changes for these 5-year updates, which is again what we're doing now. So the Solid Waste Management Committee, you will see the roster listed in the plan, and you'll see there's, I want to say, about 22 of us, and just folks from all kinds of different backgrounds, different perspectives, professional backgrounds and whatnot. So there's a lot of different people, excuse me, a lot of different perspectives and levels of expertise on our group. So we're really happy to have all of those folks there. So we've spent the last several months, we've broken into subgroups, each kind of took a chapter. Everybody had at least 2 chapters, some had maybe a little bit more, and they each took their deep dive into the plan. What you'll see, what you have before you is you'll see all the different track changes, everything we're proposing to change. There are some questions that we still need to, just a couple little bits and pieces here and there, but you'll see everything there, either as track changes in the actual document, or you'll see comments off to the side. Again, just a variety of different things. The majority of what's happening with this plan update is getting all of our data current to 2023. So all the different figures and facts and tables and whatnot, we're making sure we have all of our data current through 2023 for our recycling numbers and household waste pounds and all kinds of different things. You'll see all of that's been updated to 2023. The other thing we've done is five years since we last did this, there's been a lot of things we've accomplished in those last 5 years that we want to make sure are properly reflected in the plan. For example, you'll see that the Food and Farm Council that was formed, I believe in 2018, 2019, they've actually done, excuse me, a lot of work in these last few years, including putting together a master food plan that both the city and the county have adopted. That happened in 2022. And there's, of course, a lot of pieces that overlap the master food plan with our solid waste plan. So there's a lot of goals that are reflected now in our solid waste management plan to pick up what the master food plan covers. They've done a lot of other really good work as well that's listed in there. Other things like the city and their furniture amnesty day, I believe that's new within the last couple of years. Our battery recycling program that the Solid Waste Management Committee put together in 2021. That's where all the stickers and brochures that I have in my office still come from. So all of that, we've done a lot in the last 5 years. So we want to make sure it's reflected in the plan. And so that's a lot of it. Then the other part of it is now looking out an additional 5 to 10 years. The plan is supposed to be looking out over 10 years. So we've progressed our goals and our percentages that we want to hit, certain recycling percentages or waste reduction percentages. Everything's been advanced out to 2029 when we'll do this plan again and then kind of reassess what we've done and update from there. One of the big things that we identified as a goal in this plan is to update the solid waste characterization study that was last done in 2005. That's a long time ago. So we have identified that our goal is to identify funding sources and hopefully collaborating with other agencies and organizations to get that plan updated in the next few years, because that's really important to help assess how successful we've been. We have all these goals and we can show the numbers, but kind of what does that really equate to and what do we still need to do? So that updating that study is really important. So that's identified in this plan as well. So those are just kind of some of the highlights. Again, you'll see everything that's being proposed to change. That's, of course, also how I have to submit it to the state. They'll get a track changes document, just like you folks are seeing. So they're aware, and we have to fill out some worksheets and stuff, but just so they're aware of what we're proposing to change and just making sure it meets everything. One new thing and why this is before you folks, it's the KDHE has changed their requirements since the last time we did this. And that's why you folks now get this wonderful gift of getting to look at a 100+ page document. They do require that we have the planning board review and also be part of the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who of course make the final decision, and then it gets shipped off to the state for their review and hopeful approval. So that's kind of why you get to see it. And that's just in a really small nutshell what we're doing here and kind of what most of the meat of the updates is for you. So David, I don't know if you can hear me or if you have anything to add.
Yep, I had to figure out how to unmute myself here. I think you did an exceptional job highlighting it. That is the most significant changes. This has been a process that's been required by KDHE now for several decades. The 5-year plan, again, it is a big overhaul. It's a lot of man hours, a lot of human resource hours and getting the updates done. The change with having it come to this body first before going to the Board of County Commissioners is new. That is a change. Fortunately, the committees have got all their work done, and I think we've put together an absolutely super product. Historically, the Riley County plan and the things that we do with regard to solid waste management, recycling, and other environmental things, a lot of the things they do up at Household Hazardous Waste Center, we are widely considered one of the better kind of maybe more forward thinking counties in the state in terms of the dynamic things that we do. So with that, the key thing is we're looking for this body's approval or acquiescence of the document so that it can be forwarded on to the Board of County Commissioners so that we can meet the deadline of getting it filed with KDHE in the proper timeline.
All right, thank you. So I guess start out, does any of the board members have any questions or anything?
Other than some references to things that are no longer used, like floppy disks, for the most part, and a few things I would phrase differently, I think it's fine. From reading through it very quickly. How's that? Thoroughly, but quickly.
And I actually looked at each one of the pages. Didn't read every word. I trust all the experts that put this together. If they say it's a great plan, I need time to agree with them.
Jack, you got anything? Say you was on
Yeah.
the committee.
A lot of thought and time put in to update this plan. I think the diversity of people we have, we came up with some great ideas.
I got through half of it. And then I got preoccupied with some other stuff. But anyhow, yeah, I feel like Joe does, the experts, you guys, took a lot of time to go through this and, so we'll move on from there. So I guess, we'll need to make an approval or approve a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So do I have a motion to do
So moved. We recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
No, second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve recommendation of the Raleigh County Planning Development of Environmental Health Report to the Raleigh County Commissioners. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you, Amanda. Okay. The board's gonna take just a few minute break here and we'll move on to our last agenda item for the evening. So
Sure, so plenty of cookies, water, coffee, wish to grab some. If you haven't signed in.
That one you get work. Well, they sound well done. That they're doing is a good thing.
was driving, he was, I had the same thing there, but it's like. One guy.
I
You don't have to. It's not on. Trust me, it's not on. We haven't needed that yet. We're gonna quit at 10 o'clock. I haven't been to bed for 4 days. So yes, we will. We take care of it, Warren. So worry. All right, if I can have everybody's attention, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna have looks like we're gonna have a long evening ahead of us, supposedly, so if everybody would take their seats.
Yeah, wait on me.
Hey, you didn't grab me one, no, I'm.
You want a cookie?
Yeah.
I'll go get you one.
Yeah.
You're important. Not everybody's sitting down yet anyway. Kevin.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna go and get started. Everybody can take their seat and I guess I will reiterate before we get started. Earlier this evening when we started, I read out the rules for the public comment session. So we're gonna stick to them very firmly. So if there's any repetitiveness, if it's been said once, that's where we're gonna stop at. So anyhow, okay. With that being said, we're gonna continue our agenda items tonight. Item number 5 is gonna be the public hearing to consider request from Evergy Kansas Central LLC petitioner for special use authorization to establish an electrical substation in Ashland Township. Bob, can we go ahead with your staff report?
Thank you. Again, good evening, folks. This is a public hearing. Consider the request made by Evergy Central Kansas Inc. for a special use authorization to establish and operate an electrical switching station. The 6-acre subject site generally located approximately 2,000 feet southwest of West 32nd Avenue and 1,395 feet north of McDowell Creek Road, in Section 12, Township 11 South, Range 7 East, and Ashland Township. The proposed location for the switching station is a tract of land located immediately west of the intersection of Conza Prairie Lane and McDowell Creek Road on the north side of McDowell Creek Road. According to the applicant, the proposed Conza substation will increase the reliability, serviceability, and load of Evergy's electrical system in the city of Manhattan, Raleigh County, and surrounding areas. The new switching station will contain equipment that function as switches and breakers that will allow personnel to perform maintenance on the transmission lines and substation equipment without subjecting customers to unnecessary outages. The subject site is zoned AG agricultural and has been zoned as such since at least 1958. Most of the properties surrounding the site is also zoned AG agricultural. There are no conditional uses or other special uses associated with the site. Raleigh County Fire District Number 1 will serve the site. The nearest county fire station is the Ashland Fire Station, currently located at 2881 West 32nd. This map shows the location of the existing station relative to the proposed switching station. In 2022, the BOCC approved a special use authorization for the new fire station located just west of the Ashland Cemetery. The new Ashland Fire Station has not yet been constructed. So this map here illustrates the proposed site in relation to the unnumbered A zone, shown here in the yellow hatch pattern. It's again, as mentioned, it's the 1% annual chance floodplain that has no base flood elevations established. Okay, this is the new site plan. This differs from last year's request when they were planning on locating it in this general area here. It's north of the nearest power pole here. And so they're pushing it further north and trying to use the screening and distance to conceal it. So please notice the difference between the original site plan, as I mentioned, submitted last year and this one. The stormwater runoff from the compressed gravel pad will be via sheet flow rather than from a single point. That will help with reducing the chance for rutting and erosion. Screening will be the use of high security 3/8 chain link mesh fencing around the switching station. Evergy has elected not to install colored vinyl slats in the fence. Those tend to wear out and break or anyhow, as they believe that the semi-opaque nature of the fencing material mesh, combined with the native grass plantings and distance from the road, will provide adequate screen for the substation. A little perspective here. You can see that on the distance from the certain points, the new location of the switching station from the approximate entrance to the Ashland Cemetery is 1,674 feet. It's over a quarter of a mile. It is approximately 1,395 feet directly south of the site on the north right-of-way line of McDowell Creek Road, both of which, as mentioned, over a quarter of a mile away. And finally, the proposed station is 833 feet from the entrance into Conza Prairie Biological Research Station. Okay, so the request was also reviewed with the 2009 Vision 2025 Raleigh County Comprehensive Plan, specifically the Development Guidance System, Chapter 12. The first element of the DGS is conformance to the goals, objectives, and policies of the plan. The Vision 2025 plan does not specifically address electricity, the grid, substations, etc., because electricity and its associated equipment is a part of our infrastructure and a necessary part of our daily lives. Although it is important to reasonably allow utility companies to maintain, upgrade, and or modernize their equipment, it's also important to work with such companies to seek out the best ways of doing so. Considering the emphasis the plan places on the rural environment, a review of Chapter 6 of the plan seemed pertinent. The overall goal of that chapter is to ensure development occurs in a manner which is respectful to the county's environment and natural resources. Objective here is to restrict development to areas with few environmental hazards to minimize environmental impact and potential damage to or loss of public services and facilities and or private property. That includes floodplain. Policies here, new development shall be located in areas which are relatively free of environmental problems relative to soil, steep slopes, in other words, bedrock and water table. Each proposed development shall be reviewed by the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Staff analysis of this, according to a better understanding of what the term development means, I should say, can be found in the Riley County Land Development Regulations. So according to the LDR here, the term development means any building, construction, mining, extraction, dredging, filling, excavation, drilling activity, or any other material change in the use of land from its natural state. The applicant has demonstrated that locating the proposed switching station along the existing 115 kilovolt transmission line transecting the site while also staying outside of the floodplain or areas with steep slopes conforms to the goal, objective, and policy. The request was also reviewed with Chapter 5 of the plan, specifically rural character and rural guidelines. The goal here is to promote development that is compatible with the rural character of Riley County. Promote compliance with the rural guidelines, of course, is the objective. And the policy here is to encourage voluntary adherence to the rural guidelines, rural design guidelines. I wanted to go through a few of those with you. And so examples of the specific strategies for achieving compliance or conformance, I should say, with the rural design guidelines. Optimize the shape and configuration of farmable parcels. The location of the proposed switching station differs this year than last year when they came forth with a proposal where the station, the current proposal maximizes the continued proficiency and farmability of the parent tract. In other words, its access doesn't cut across the field to the substation, dividing the tract in a very inefficient way. So according to the site plan, which I'll show you again a little later, the access runs along the edge of the field, so it allows the farmability to be of a more useful and efficient manner. Second, minimize visual impact of development from roadsides. This in the plan, it gives several examples of how housing, residential development should occur in a manner that is in conformance with the rural character. If it has to be man-made, it should be in a way that it blends a bit better with the natural environment. So with that, Evergy is proposing to locate the switching station as far away from McDowell Creek Road as possible, while still accessing that line, transecting the site. Evergy is proposing mesh security perimeter fencing along with complementary landscaping to screen the site with an effort to blend in with surrounding vegetation. To integrate development with existing landscape patterns, as I mentioned, again, with the use of landscaping and vegetation and with the mesh fencing is designed to try to not be as obnoxious or obtrusive a man-made structure as possible. Second, use existing vegetation to screen and develop. As I mentioned, the riparian area along Kings Creek provides some natural screening from the north and east of the site. The fields surrounding the proposed site will be cropped, which will somewhat assist with screening efforts during certain times of the year. Use new landscaping to screen and enhance development. Again, just spoke of that. Minimize visual impact of development through sensitive home siting on hillsides and limited placement of development on hilltops. And this is not up on a hilltop. We've seen some of those, and yes, they can be quite noticeable. That's not here, it's really not applicable in this situation. Of course, then retain wooded areas, no wooded areas will be removed or altered with this request. Minimize the number of driveways, regulate placement and grade. Again, that one access point is going to be moved off to the edge of the tract itself. And of course, integrate development with existing topography and vegetation as much as possible. The staff analysis is part of the overall definition of rural character, the Vision 2025 Comprehensive Plan stated. Rural character is many times a perception unique to the individual. One person may interpret rural character as a low density of development. Another may only see it as a complete absence of man-made features, such as signs and buildings, yet another may view it as a certain architectural style or antique type of artifacts. So it's really more of a subjective call here. The intention of the rural guidelines was to minimize premature development or inappropriately located development. It was never meant to prohibit it. Furthermore, the guidelines were meant primarily for residential development, as the plan offered suggestions on how such development could be acceptable using strategies provided in the plan. Examples. So, again, going back to the development guidance system, the second element was, of course, the future land use map. According to the future land use map, north found in the plan, the subject property is located within, it's not actually located within a designated growth area. This is incorrect. But again, these are not subject to being within or outside of a designated growth area. That's not the reason why that was established. And of course, the land evaluation site assessment score, there was not a visa generated for this. Hardship on the landowner, but the applicant at this point in time did not express an unnecessary hardship that be occurred if the request were to be denied. But that is again going to be left up to the applicant to express to the board in their presentation. Okay, so staff request or staff analysis, the request is consistent with the goals and objectives of the plan when it comes to infrastructure. Okay, so a few things of the site. I'm standing at the entrance of the Ashland Cemetery. And on this track here, I'm going to try to, it's kind of difficult. I'm going to try to bring your attention because things blend in here. There's one power pole here. There's the other one, and this is the north boundary of the property. Where the cows are kind of congregating over here is where the substation or the switching station would go. This is the access point along the side of the track, which I have a better shot of here. This is where the access point will be, which is quite a bit further down from the original access point, which was directly across the street from the entrance to the Conza Biological Research Station. Again, the substation would be north of this pole here. Again, that is from this point to this road is 1/4 mile. Another shot here, you can kind of see right where the cows are on the north side of the pole, not on the south side of the pole. That's where that substation will go. Incidentally, I turned around and took a picture of the transmission line going south on across Conza Biological Research Station's property. That line extends all the way south past the I-70. That is on Conza property. And turn around. So this picture is taken at the entrance to the Conza, and again where where McDowell Creek kind of wraps around and it goes south of the property. You'll get more of a side view here. So this is the second pole here. The substation would go in essentially in this area right here. That's about 800, 900 feet from this point. So with that, we'll go over the special use conditions, and not a whole lot of difference from the what was proposed before. The entrance and access road to the substation consists of and will be maintained with all weather service. No portion of the site shall be used for storage of equipment, vehicles, materials, or something during construction. All outdoor light fixtures shall be shielded with cutoff fixtures and directed downward to prevent off-site glare. There's not going to be a constant light on, as you may have read in the packet. It's going to be for emergencies only. Screening shall consist of mesh security fence along with natural vegetative landscaping on the west, east, and south sides of the site. All areas beyond this area shall be graded and seeded up to the point where the surrounding agricultural use of the site will take over. And of course, a reclamation plan shall be submitted to and approved by the Riley County Planning Board. That's if something were to happen and it needs to be removed. It'll be returned to its natural state. So you can see the difference between the location of where it's at. Also, the overall site selection is smaller than it was before. So these are some things for the board to consider. The overall aesthetic impact of the proposed switching station is highly dependent on the size and location of the facility. Fencing and landscaping, as well as distance, can reduce the industrial look of such structures. Although electrical substations have an undeniable industrial look to them, the reality is that they are needed, much like cell towers and water towers, and cannot be just much or expected to locate only in industrial districts or areas designated for industrial uses. There are several such examples in Riley County where they're not located within the city. There has to be a reasonable balance between rural character and the aesthetics of essential services that may not necessarily conform to what is considered rural or naturally occurring. With that said, it's encouraged to not only locate such facilities in a safe and convenient location, but to consider adjustments to the site selection that could help minimize real or perceived impacts on view sheds and surrounding cultural amenities. And Evergy has stepped forward to try to brought forth last year to make some adjustments to their planning. The proposed switching station is necessary and will benefit the community as a whole. Staff recommends that the planning board forward a recommendation of approval of the request to the Board of County Commissioners based on the following findings. The proposed switching station site was selected based on the location of the existing line there that transects the property and will be connected to the station to accommodate future load. The proposed switching station will contain equipment that functions as switches and breakers that will allow personnel to perform maintenance on the transmission line and substation equipment without subjecting customers to unnecessary outages. In many ways, this is extremely important when the power goes out and there's people who depend on electricity for their health. The proposed substation will not pollute the air, the land, or water, or produce dust, fumes, odors, smoke, or vibration. It has been determined that the request meets the requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and the Riley County Sanitary Code by relocating the facility as far north on the parent tract as possible while staying out of the floodplain, with emphasis placed on the combination of mesh screening and landscaping. The applicant is making an effort to reduce the visibility of the station. Staff recommends that the planning board forward a recommendation of approval of the request to the board of Riley or commissioners of Riley County, conditioned upon the following findings. Again, mentioned as earlier here, that the entrance and the access road to the substation shall consist of and be maintained with all weather surfacing. Incidentally, the traffic in and out there will be maybe one truck a month. That is it. So the impact on the McDowell Creek Road is not going to be a traffic issue. No portion of the site shall be used for the storage of equipment, vehicles, materials, or supplies except during construction. Outdoor light fixtures, as mentioned, shall be shielded with cutoff fixtures and directed downward Screening shall consist of mesh security fence along with natural vegetative landscaping on the west, east, and south side of the site. I'll leave that to the applicant to describe that in more detail as far as the site plan. And a reclamation plan shall be submitted and approved by the Riley County Planning Board. That's all I have. If you have any questions for me, that concludes my presentation.
Eric,
Nope.
Joe?
This reclamation plan, is that something that comes to us now or? in
They
the
got
future?
Violet now.
Well, not at this moment. Yeah, I'll have to come back to it. We had that in the packet.
Was it in the packet?
I think it's in the
It's in their
packet.
Oh, in their packet.
their packet that they provided.
Okay. There was also something else that I saw, this, something about some kind of approval or recommendation from the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
That's in the plan.
That's in the plan.
That's in the plan.
Is it something that they can do specifically this?
No, all development goes to them. We send them a development review memo and have them chime in. And if they send us something, they do, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they don't.
Okay.
That's the language in the plan.
Jack, anything for Bob?
I do not.
I don't either. Okay, at this time. At this time, would the representative, for Evergy, Kansas Central, Jessica Hecky.
Even though my water, my voice is gonna do the same thing, yours is.
Okay,
And Bob. I have a presentation. I don't know how to get it. Why is that, Jessica, with Evergy, 818 South Kansas Avenue. Thank you, Bob. I want to thank you guys for your consideration on this important decision tonight. I have over 20 years experience in the permitting and the environmental aspect of it, so I understand the significance of the decision you guys have to make. I also appreciate the varying concerns and opinions that go along with this property. This decision is not just about a piece of land. It's about our commitment to providing reliable electricity to the area, not just to this area, but to Riley County as a whole. As the community continues to grow, so does the need for reliable electricity and the reliable infrastructure that goes along with it. This switching station is not just a convenience, it's a necessity to ensure that we continue to provide the power that this community needs and deserves now and into the future. This presentation that I have is going to highlight the project and why we need to move forward at this individual location. It's the best one that we believe, in our opinion, to help solve the needs of the community. At the end of the presentation, I'll offer obviously around the questions, so I'm sure you'll have some. This is proposed switching station. I'm gonna hit the control button. There we go. So as Bob mentioned, Evergy is proposing to construct the new switching station on property located west of the Medal Creek Road and Conza Prairie Lane intersection. The subject property is currently zoned agricultural, AG. The proposed switching station will be accessed from a new entrance off McDowell Creek Road. The station itself is approximately 1.7 acres. The dimensions are 250 by 290. The property that we're looking at is 6 acres. That gives us room to construct and to move around. But the switching station itself is only going to be 1.7 acres on that property. The rest of it, the landowner will continue to farm. What is a switching station? It's a protective component to the electric grid without power transforming equipment that operates only at a single voltage level. That means there will not be transformers at this site that sometimes is associated with the noise that the larger substations create. Switching station is put in place to ensure line failure or maintenance outages have less impact to the overall power grid because of the allowed access to the lines without complete de-energization. I can't say that word. Proposed site, as you saw in Bob's presentation, the proposed site is pretty much as far north on that property as we can put it. It does tie right underneath our existing 115 kV transmission line. It will provide electric grid reliability in the area. And then when we're looking at sites, we consider the factors, the size of the property that we're getting. Like I said, this one's 6 acres. The actual switching station itself is gonna be 1.7, but it gives us room to construct it. And then obviously let the landowner farm that property when we're done with it. Location to the existing Evergy infrastructure, being right under the line, it makes it a lot easier to tie right into the switching station, not have to bring lines to wherever the site is if it was off of our line. The impacts to the surrounding landowners, the nearest landowner is about 600 feet from this property. Floodplains was actually a very big determining factor in this one. There's a lot of floodplains around this area, and switching stations or electricity don't work very well in floodplains. Wetlands, this is on a crop ground, so there's not wetlands in this area. Site topography, this is a very flat area, makes the cost and the access to the site very feasible. Tree coverage, not applicable to this one, and the road access off of Jow Creek Road, it's ideal spot as well. Floodplain detail, as I had mentioned earlier, floodplains are a significant factor in this site. There's not a lot of opportunity when we're trying to tie into that 115 kV line, which is shown in yellow here. Just south of our site is the Konza Prairie. We made a very concerted effort to stay as far north of that as possible without getting into the floodplain. If we went west, we would have to tie in to the 115 line from that switching station site. So having it there reduces that tie-in. So the existing Evergy transmission substation infrastructure, the map on the left shows the airport, and it's kind of hard to see, but the red dots and then there's yellow dots as well that show you kind of the heights that you possibly could put in that area without having a aviation issue. And we're 46 feet. It's very limiting on what we can and can't put into this location due to the aviation and the flight paths. The map on the right shows our existing infrastructure. So the pink fuchsia lines are the 34.5 kV transmission lines that feed most of the area. There's 4 substations that are west of our proposed switching station site. Those 4 substations serve 1,459 customers. That includes co-ops and public utility or public infrastructures as one site. So one of the 1,459 might be a co-op that serves many customers. So currently that 34.5 kV line is pretty close to at capacity. Adding this switching station into this line will allow us to feed the area on a 115 kV, which is much more reliable, and it decreases the outages, and it helps with getting the lights back on quicker. Also helps with maintenance where we can switch between sources. Surrounding area is predominantly agriculture. Ashland Cemetery is to the south. The Konza Prairie is, and the trailheads to the southeast. Nearest residences, as I mentioned, is approximately 600 feet, and then the new fire station is located just west of the cemetery. Site development plan, it's kind of hard to see, but it just shows how far back it is, and it mentions the vegetated screening that we would put on 3 of the sides to help buffer the line of sight for the switching station. We would also, like Bob had mentioned, to put in the mesh fence. Think a masonry wall on here that we do in some areas would probably actually pull your attention to it more than some vegetated screening and the opaque fencing. Sorry. I warned you I was gonna need a drink. And we have some actual renderings of what the site might look like or is proposed to look like. This is the preview and then the after. So this is just looking overhead. of what the site might look like or is planning on looking like when it's constructed. This is the substation entrance facing north, so this would be at the entrance off of McDowell Creek Road, looking up to it. So over a quarter mile away, it's gonna be hard to see. You can see the transmission line structures in both images. This is from the cemetery facing northeast. Again, the left-hand side is the Cree and the right-hand side is the post. This is from the so give this a little pointer to work. The site is right about there on this one. You can't see it on this one. Proposed Riley County switching station, the land evaluation site assessment factors, the neighborhood, character of the neighborhood, the surrounding area is a combination of ag, rural residential and industrial land uses. The zoning and uses of the nearby property, zoned agricultural or agricultural special use. The Ashland Cemetery is located 0.35 miles south of the switching station fence line. A new fire station is under construction west of the cemetery. And then the Concert Prairie is located south of the McDowell Creek Road, approximately 0.7 miles from the fence line. And then the residences are nearest residence approximately 600 feet away. Property is zoned agricultural and the public utility is permitted with an approval of a special use permit, which is why we're here tonight. This property is ideal for a switching station due to the topography, proximity to the existing transmission lines, and the distance from occupied buildings. The site is not in a floodplain, which is a very determining factor for us. And according to the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks and Fish and Wildlife Service, switching station will not impact threatened or endangered species. It's part of the due diligence that we do on all of our sites as we submit that prior to any of this coming to any of these meetings or actually building anything. The impact of the special use permit on nearby property, visual impacts would be mitigated by the vegetated screening around the switching station, as I had mentioned earlier. It will not emit noise. There's no transformers there. Lining will be switch operated, so that it will not be lit up unless there is an emergency situation and we need to be on site. And the traffic on the local roads will increase slightly during construction only, and then, as Bob had mentioned as well, we will not, we'll only be there about once a month for maintenance activities. And this next slide is kind of showing the aesthetics, the visual aesthetics in the area. We recognize the visual attributes of this area and the significance to the surrounding communities. But as you can see through these slides, there are several industries and infrastructures that support the community. Evergy is striving to continue to support the community with as minimal impact as possible. We did walk up to the top of the Concert Prairie. That's actually at the top. And then we took a picture looking towards the switching station site. And this is on the top of the tallest hill we could get to. And the switching station, you can see our transmission line will run through there. It's going to be behind that hill. There's natural topography in the area that will hide it from the view. And I tried to find, I tried to get the best spot to get that picture from as well, to show where the site might be or where site's proposed to be. Continuing on the LISA factors, the project will improve the reliability of Evergy's electrical grid in Riley County. We'll be able to restore power more quickly after outages, and it will improve public health and welfare due to that. The benefits of the switching station are the same as listed in the top factor. Will mitigate the visual impacts of the vegetative buffer and screening. And then conformance to the proposed change to the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan states that the future growth and development of rural Riley County will depend largely upon the extent of public services and facilities available to accommodate such growth. The availability of utilities and service affects the safety and quality of the life of the residents of the economic stability of the county. Riley County will promote a development pattern that provides long-term development needs. Reliable electricity is paramount to existing and developing communities. And I'm apologizing for my cough now. Conformance to the comprehensive plan. Evergy supports Riley County's efforts to preserve agricultural land and the rural character of the community. Riley County's Vision 2025 document recognizes the need for cost-effective and efficient utility infrastructure. Since the proposed switching station will be constructed adjacent to the existing transmission line, this will minimize the impacts of the utility infrastructure on the surrounding areas. And it's kind of hard to read, but in the background, Riley County will promote a development pattern that provides for the long-term development needs while achieving cost-effective, efficient provision of infrastructure and public facilities. The switching station will allow the continued development of Riley County now and into the future. And then the hardship factor. Riley County's development guidance system considers legitimate hardship concerns involved, either financial or non-financial, and how those concerns compare to the gain to the public health, safety, and welfare by denying the special use permit. Denying our application will adversely affect the electric reliability for residents in Ogden, Ashland Bottoms, and elsewhere in Riley County. The process of determining where we site a switching station is extensive and involves several years of due diligence and planning. This includes consideration of balancing environmental factors and potential impacts to nearby residents. We've been working on this project for several years. I mean, we were here last year with a different location. We've moved it. So this has been several years in the making. So if we are denied, it's still several years. And I had mentioned the current grid that's there now that's serving the communities is at capacity. So if something that took up load wanted to come into the community, Evergy would have a hard time finding the capacity to serve that customer. Relocating the switching station east or west of the existing 115 kV transmission line, that's the one that goes to the property that we're currently on, would require construction of a costly double circuit transmission line through Ashland Bottoms to tie into the switching station to the existing line. So if we move that site east or west of where we're at, and like I said, there's limiting factors such as the floodplain. So there's very limiting places we could move it, considering we'd have to have a willing landowner as well, which is what we have on this site. We would have to tie back into that 115 line. It has to go to that line. So if we move it farther away, that's more infrastructure that's going to go back and forth because it has to come as in and out to that line. In conclusion, the process that you guys have here works. We were here a year ago. As most of you know, I've seen some of you before. We use the input that we got from that meeting, and you see that we've moved our site. We've tried to minimize the visual impacts to the local community. You're about to hear from a lot of folks probably that have they're going to have some feelings and some concerns with what we're doing. We understand that, we really do, but we have to weigh those concerns with what's best for the community as a whole, not just an area. We've tried to locate our site in a spot that minimizes the impacts. We can't make everybody happy. We're not going to. I hate that part of my job. I wish I could make everybody happy. It's just not part of it. For a growing community, you need the infrastructure, and we need to be able to build that infrastructure to maintain the reliability that we provide. We're also obligated to provide that reliability. We're obligated to provide reliable, sustainable, and affordable electricity to the community and the customers that we serve. And that's what we're trying to do. So with that, any questions?
So the switching station there, is it just for the lines that are going overhead? Or is it to provide additional lines for providing electricity other places?
Right now, we are tying into the existing 115 kV transmission line. We don't find anything else until we know we have a site.
I understand that, but what you're saying is that you're going to put that site in and to supply electricity to the Ogden area and the airport, you're going to have to run more lines over there, correct?
That has not been determined. I hate to say that.
Well, then that negates the reasoning for putting it in there. In other words, is it just to control the high power line, or does it feed electricity somewhere else? That's the question.
So the ultimate goal would be to provide the more robust power. Yes, that probably means getting something somewhere else, probably over to Ogden or to another area. That has not been determined yet.
I understand that, but the
Yeah.
only reason to put the substation is to connect it.
It's not a substation.
It's not, it's
It's a switch.
A switch station. The only reason to put it in is so you can switch power to other parts of the grid.
And whatever we do is regulated by the KCC, and we have to go through a robust study of that area that also requires public meetings and public hearings. Not public hearings, but public meetings with public input and a great deal of public involvement. So whatever we do after we get this site will still require more public input. We're not just gonna go bulldoze a transmission line through somebody's neighborhood without talking to them. We've done several of these and it does, we've had 4 or 5 open houses in the last year. Talking to the community and taking the concerns. We have to provide the power. And we understand that we can't make everybody happy. And it's a hard job and that's a hard side of it, but we have to provide the power, but we do involve the public as much as we possibly can. Which is why I don't have a route now or definite answers to that now.
I know you don't have a route now, but you're telling me that you're going to be putting in other lines eventually. Or there's no reason to put it there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Joe,
No questions at the moment.
Jackie, any questions for?
No.
I don't have any at this time either, so thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a picture?
You're talking out of term. We're not allowing any of that this evening, sorry. So as we're gonna go ahead. If anybody speaks out of term, I will call you out on it. So just FYI. Okay, Lisa's, like I said, we're gonna each out, we're gonna allow 5 minutes for public comment. Lisa's got a timer, and when it goes off, if you're close to wrapping it up. Yes.
Other proponents first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're following this. Yeah. So anyhow,
For both sides.
for both sides, yeah. So 5 minutes, for each, for public comment. All right, at this time, okay, we've already had our applicant, present the presentation, so, well, I guess I'll ask for the first presentation of facts for proponents within 1,000 feet. Nobody's jumping up. Okay, we'll move on then. Is there any opponents within 1,000 feet?
Yes.
Brian.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go. Emma Leuthold, 2241 West 40th Avenue, Manhattan, Kansas. So I'm speaking on behalf of my father-in-law. He had to step out, but he is within 1,000 feet. His name is Mark Leuthold. His address is 2861 West 32nd Avenue. I just said, my name is Emma Leuthold. I'm speaking for my father-in-law, Mark Leuthold, who's within 1,000 feet zone first. My father-in-law is a quiet and non-confrontational man that was here, but he had to leave. And because of that, you must realize I'm the opposite of that. That is why I am speaking on his behalf for his request. Mark has worked extensively hard his whole life to be able to farm in Ashland Bottoms and McDowell Creek area. This piece of property that is within 1,000 feet zone is one of the first pieces of farm ground Mark had the joy of purchasing as a young farmer. One of the concerns for him at the last meeting was Evergy. If Evergy only needed 1.7 acres now, this has changed, to build a switching station on, then why are they purchasing 6 acres without the plan of expanding to a substation with large transmission lines in the near future? This is still a big concern for him. After the approval of the switching station, the planning board, along with the commissioners, no longer have influence over the size of the transmission lines or where they run. Evergy does. That's when eminent domain comes into play. Wabunsee County has faced this reality in recent years when Evergy went in to the planning board and commissioners requesting the approval of expanding an electrical infrastructure. And when directly asked by one of Wabunsee County's commissioners if there were any plans of expansion when it came to a large transmission lines going across the county, Evergy stated something along the lines of, "Not at this point in time." Evergy has now started the process of running large transmission lines across Wabunsee County that the planning board and commissioners cannot stop. Riley County has their own comprehensive plan that is to preserve agricultural property. And if the planning board approves this request, you're going against that very comprehensive plan with these allowing large towers, chain link fence, fake looking screening to hide the electrical monster, and power lines to take over what many people call our home, God's country. His grandparents moved to Ashen Bottoms to get a fresh start after being forced out of their farm in Riley when the Fort moved in. His grandparents found a home in Ashen Bottoms that they loved so much that their children decided to raise their families out there too. Mark is a third-generation farmer in Ashen Bottoms in McDowell Creek area. And he is asking you to deny the request of putting the switching station in the place he calls home. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Ryan Lopowski.
No. Hang on. Okay. Oh, you're within 1,000 feet?
Well,
Are you within 1,000 feet? Okay.
Are you the father or your father?
Well, so anybody else within 1,000 feet? 1,000 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Austin Cisneros. Myself, my wife and children, or 3 children, and I live just straight east of the proposed Evergy switching station. So we're at 600 feet. I've been a part of the Ashton community for just over 10 years. And I knew from the beginning that this is a place I wanted to settle down and raise my family. So needless to say, I was extremely disappointed to learn about the proposed location of the switching station within 600 feet of us, less than a year after moving into our forever home. I want to start by asking for empathy from the Evergy Planning Board for myself and the other parents impacted by the proposed location. I have 3 young children that are going to live within 1,000 feet of this high voltage switching station, an additional 3 other families with children within the 1,000 feet of this site. Altogether, that makes 9 young children within a short distance of this high voltage. In fact, I would venture to say that there is not a single other site in the community that would be so close in proximity to the homes and water sources of 9 minors. While results remain somewhat inconclusive, there have been many studies linking to negative side effects of high voltage exposure, and I, for one, do not want to gamble on the health of my future, of my children, and my friends' children. I understand the position of the board, is in, and the impacts other people, and this impacts other people than just myself and my neighbors. I understand changes are coming, and Manhattan and Ogden areas are going to continue to grow, as I have seen since I've moved here in 2008. But I would also argue that the people who benefit from the station would have the same feelings as I do with the switching station going in their backyard. If their kids had lights shining in their bedroom windows at night and a constant buzzing every time they went outside. I want to finish with this. Again, I ask for empathy for my family, mainly my young children, and especially my daughter, who is 1 month old today. And will spend the next 18 years of her life only within 600 feet from a high voltage switching station. I challenge the Evergy board to put themselves in my shoe. And if they and their children if this was them and their children, would they continue to push for this location? Thank you for your time, empathy, and consideration.
Thank you. Are you within 1,000 feet?
Indeed.
Well, I got this map out here and I only see two houses that are in the circle.
Our property is in. Our house is on the hill. Our land is in the valley and it circles through it.
Sure. All right, okay. I was just looking for, I thought it was a residential. I
No,
thought
it can just touch a property and it
Property,
doesn't
okay.
have to have.
have a house on it, okay. All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ron Plataski and I live at 4490 McDowell Creek Road. We've been a landowner there since '89 and we've known the couple that owned the property long before we did. And they shared our vision for the property and in addition to the concerns I have about influences on the community, conservation easements on 80 acres of our property to keep it as it is and keep it consistent with the extended ecological and scenic values of Konza Prairie. One of the things that I find most distressing about this process is the fact that Evergy plans these things. And they've been doing it apparently, she said, for several years, but there's no reaching out and involving landowners and toward the community as a whole prior to them coming and asking, will you do this? And then the other thing that is distressing is that then if you give them permission to have a switching station, then it's real easy for them to come back if in fact they have to come back to say, well, we now want it to be a substation and we're going to expand upon this and we're going to bring power lines from the east going to the west to Ogden or wherever. And they did acknowledge the fact that there are some limited sites you can go to because of floodplains, but they haven't addressed the issue of, well, let's go over in the Stag Hill where the line comes down across Stag Hill. And why can't they put it there and avoid the Ashland community and rural and naturalist landscape here entirely? It's very unfortunate, I think, as a public utility that they don't share what their long-term plan is. This is not just for a switching station. The lady said that they were at capacity for this 115 kilovolt line now. Well, why would they put a switching station in there if the next step is not to build a 145 or 240 kilovolt line coming out of there, going west to Ogden or wherever? And I just think that there isn't any other entity that would come to this board and say, well, we want to build a airport terminal. And you give us the terminal, we'll tell you later if we're going to put in runways and access roads and all this other stuff, because all we're required to do is get a terminal. And once we get a terminal, then they come back and say, well, you got to give us the rest of what we want. That's why we did this in the first place. And I think that this is something that the planning board should take a look at, that utilities and other entities should be bringing forward the entire plan and what the long-term plan is. A lot of these people, Austin and others, are planning for the lives of their children and their grandchildren. And so if they're going to invest in homes and building new homes or replacing existing ones or having things of that nature, they should have some reassurance that things aren't going to just change dramatically overnight. And those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you. Are there any other landowners within the 1,000 feet that are opponents that would like to speak? Okay, so at this time, we will have a rebuttal from the applicant if you'd like to come up, and if you have anything to say from what you've heard already. She got 5 minutes.
No, she doesn't.
She doesn't, okay, okay,
I won't take more than 5 minutes.
okay,
Do I need to state my name again?
yes, please.
Jessica Keck with Evergy, 818 South Kansas Avenue. I kind of took notes, so the first question was why the 6 acres, and I explained that in the presentation. It's to allow for construction. The site's gonna be 1.7 acres. I think it's 250 by 290. If we were to decide to expand, which there's no plans to expand, we'd have to come back to the commission and get approval. So we couldn't expand anyway without coming back. It was brought up at the Wabunsee County Commission meeting that the person that talked said that we didn't have any plans. I was that person. I heard that comment. I read the staff notes. I did not say that. I said I was not aware of any because I wasn't aware of any transmission lines. We did have a public meeting a month or two later. That was the outreach session for that. So we did involve the public for the transmission lines. I wasn't aware of them because I was doing the substation at that time. I was not working on the transmission lines. But at the public meeting, I said we would involve the public, which we did. We had 3 open houses, I believe, for that one. The 1,000 foot of the high voltage lines, the high voltage lines are there. There's no transformers at the switching station, so the lines are there already. And the switching station does not add any additional voltage. Lights and buzzing, I addressed that as well. The lights are gonna be switch operated, so they're only gonna be on during a emergency situation, which I would hope that wouldn't bother anybody because we're gonna try to get the lights on at that point. And then the buzzing comes from transformers, not from the switches that are at the yard. So there will not be any buzzing coming from the switching station as well. Easy to expand. I addressed that just a couple minutes ago. I don't need to address that again. We have to come back to you guys. And then it was mentioned. I want to clarify we're at capacity on the 34.5 line. Adding the switching station at the 115 adds the robust grid and it increases the reliability. We're not at capacity for 115. Getting the 115 source helps with the area, helps bring reliability to the area. So that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any rebuttal from any opponents within the 1,000 feet? If not, we'll move on. Is there any presentation of facts and opinions by other interest parties?
Ryan Klataski, 813 Juniper Drive. Good evening, members of the planning board and community. I had the opportunity to talk with you about this issue previously, and I'm here again to remind you why this proposal by Evergy should be denied and put to rest. First, it's harmful to the thriving rural community and local people in Ashland Bottoms who oppose this proposal and would be harmed by its industrial encroachment into their pastoral agricultural valley. Industrializing Ashland Bottoms against the will of local people, diminishing the value of its scenic and ecological quality would be incredibly short-sighted and impact the future of our entire community. This proposal would negatively impact Konza Prairie, which hosts one of our state's premier hiking experiences, right on the outskirts of our town, situated in one of our state's most scenic rural landscapes with a winding road known as Manhattan's, quote, scenic river road. It's also bad for Manhattan and Riley County as a whole, since many of us enjoy, appreciate, and benefit from the scenic and ecological value of the Flint Hills and the Tallgrass Prairie. Instead of allowing this switch valuable resources to sustain rather than degrade. For those of us who enjoy and want to protect Konza Prairie, it's important to also stand for the protection of Ashland Bottoms and its rural scenic character. And this means standing with the farmers, ranchers, and rural folks that this development would be forced upon. Recommending denial of this new proposal, which barely shifts the proposed site location and continues to disregard the concerns and well-being of local people, is a crucial step in protecting our valuable resources and neighbors. If I were to grade this revised proposal, I would say it goes from an F- to an F. For me, I view this issue from multiple points of view. The proposed development would impact my family and our land located across the road from the proposed site, diminishing the value of our land like many others in the vicinity. But I also enjoy living in a town with scenic surroundings and outdoor opportunities like hiking, among people who take pride in the prairie around us. I'm a board member of the Friends of Congo Prairie because I care about this special place. And I'm also an anthropologist that believes that we, as a county and a community, can come together to protect the Flint Hills and the scenic rural character in this area as valuable resources that benefit us all. I ask you to recommend denial of this proposal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next. Good evening, everyone. I've put on your, in front of your desks, your chairs, a 3-page statement that I would make. It's Lauren Clement, 3881 South 20th Street. I'm an Ashland Township trustee. I've served on the planning board, as some of you know, for 23 years. And I taught at K-State for 40 years as a landscape architect. And I've got particular concerns. So there's a 3-page statement there that goes through the landscape or the land development regulations concerning special use authorizations. It's section 316, and that has not come up yet tonight, which is astounding because there are 6 criteria there in the LDR 316 section for special use authorizations that all 6 of them have to be met if this is going to be approved. And they have not been addressed specifically. In your staff report, there's simply an assertion that all 6 were met, and that has not even been brought up tonight. But I'm gonna avoid being redundant by not commenting on the first page here, except to say that these LDRs have not been met, as you can see on the top line there. The second part of what I want you to look at is that diagram behind this summary of the goals and objectives about rural character and agricultural planning. The diagram that shows with the yellow line, the access point, the access road being discussed is along the edge of that property. And that blue rectangle is the actual location of that smaller site. I want you to make 2 observations here. This is coming from 40 years of teaching landscape architecture. That yellow line, the yellow line for the access road just about lines up with the cemetery. This is that corner of the cemetery that we've already talked about. Yes, it's a little bit further back into the site, but if you look down a country road, what does your eye do? Your eye follows that road. Your eye follows that line. That road is going to lead the eye from the cemetery directly to the substation, even though it's about 1,600 feet back. Just doesn't make much difference with that kind of distance in that setting. The other thing you should notice is the blue rectangle lines right up with the exit of the Congo Prairie driveway. So again, you're looking right at this thing from across a flat distance, and the screening materials aren't going to do what they're being promised to do. We all know that. So you've got this situation where this is actually even worse than what the Board of County Commissioners condemned a year ago when they looked at this proposal in a chaotic meeting that was almost side railing the process of doing this properly. And they said no to this idea at that meeting a year ago because they used the LDRs 316, and I argued then, I'm going to argue again tonight, 4 of those are not met. And all 6 have to be met for a finding that this thing should be approved. So I would ask you to go to the third page here and look at the red text. And think in terms of what we've been told already. The proposal is going to fail on this criteria about being appropriate in terms of scale, site design, and operating characteristics. These are big components, 75 feet to the towers and so forth. We've just mentioned again the direct sight line to that site from the Konza Prairie driveway. And then the alignment of this road coming out to the Ashland Cemetery. This is not a lot of distance, and especially at night, it makes no difference for what the experience really is. So you can read that really quickly yourselves. I offer you to do that. I just want to say again, at the bottom line here, I think we all know that in the future, we're talking about monopoles, not these wooden poles that are 40 feet tall. We're talking about Corten steel, big, huge poles that are going to go across Ashland toward Ogden and airport area. And it's not just these homes right here that are going to be affected. It's right along 33rd Street and north of 33rd Street going west. There's another half a dozen homes that you go generally in that direction that are built for the views. They're extraordinarily valuable because they have these views. That value is going to be diminished, as some of my colleagues are going to talk about here in a few minutes. So it's already been rejected by the Board of County Commissioners. Let's just leave it that way and please deny it. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Levnick and I live at 5011 McDowell Creek Road. Have been living in this area for almost 30 years. My husband has a business on the land there. And as we discussed the last time we went through this, the business is a wood shop that was built specifically for that purpose, well off the road and outside of the view of anybody driving through that area. I thought through this, and what I'd like to address this evening is the impact of this on property values on McDowell Creek Road. And thinking about it, it's difficult to put a dollar value on something like what we have on McDowell Creek Road, excuse me, and in Ashland Bottoms. In general, Kansas is not a great draw for visitors. It's not one of those places that visitors come to frequently, and the population of our state has been going down for some period of time. However, one of the biggest draws that we have in the state is the Konza Prairie Research Area. And we have got people from all over the world coming in to see this location on a routine basis. It's estimated that about 25,000 people a year hike that Konza Prairie. We've got over 4,000 students a year working on projects on the Konza Prairie, and that includes 150 active research permits yearly and hundreds of individual researchers from all over the world working there. In many ways, the Konza Prairie itself is priceless. You really cannot put a price tag on that, certainly from the perspective of Kansas. The scenic drive to Manhattan, as is stated on a sign coming off of I-70, is about Konza, but it's also about the valley. It is about what we have and what we allow to try to control as far as the beauty of that valley. Pardon me. On the west or on the east side of this, we have got informational structure built just off of 177, a pullout that gives you, again, a scenic view of the valley, and it gives you some information about the importance of the tall grass prairie and what that valley has to offer. There's a lot of value. I mentioned that the Konza Prairie itself is really above being able to put a value on, but there is a lot of value in the surrounding area from a farming, cattle production, businesses and residential norms that we have throughout that valley. An important question to ask ourselves in the situation is, besides the aesthetic impact of the switching station and the connecting high voltage power lines, And the power lines were brought up a few times here, but I think that those are critical. They're not discussed by Evergy at this point in time, but we know they're gonna go through there. And we know that they are gonna be aesthetically displeasing and that they will have some impact on that valley. What is that impact gonna be? I read a report just recently that Evergy has sent out. I don't think I saw any of this in the presentation this evening, that they had noted that realtors indicated that this type of thing doesn't have a lot of impact on land value. And really, I am here to dispute that assertion. I think that is completely false. And I've done a fair amount of research in looking for different bits of information in different areas on what that impact would be on land values. And came across a paper just recently where a gentleman named is Kurt Kylish, I believe is how you pronounce it. I've got a copy of this paper here if anybody would like to see it. I didn't run a whole lot of copies, but would be glad to share it. He did an exhaustive literature review and research study on the effect of property values due to the presence of electric transmission lines and stations. It's worth it. It's worth the read. This gentleman came up with papers and evaluations from every state in the country, just about. And okay, well, I will tell you the conclusion was that it is definitely impacting between 10 and 30% of the property value will go down with the placement of some of these things. So I'd like to thank you for your time. I will turn it over to the next presenter and hopefully we can see this thing turn down again.
Next.
I'm Dick Seaton, 3200 Shane Creek Lane, in Ashland Bottoms. As I said last time, there are two beautiful entrances to Manhattan, I think. One is the Zendale Road, and one is McDowell Creek Road. And I feel like quoting Yogi Berra here, it's kind of deja vu all over again, you know? We've got the same sign on I-70 that says Scenic River Road to Manhattan. We've got the same beautiful valley, the same Constant Prairie, the same cemetery, and the same track being proposed. They've moved it back a few hundred feet, but it'll be just as big an eyesore from McDowell Creek Road in the proposed location as it would have been in the original suggestion. Thanks very much.
Next.
My name is Valerie Wright. I live at 3048 Shane Creek Lane. It's about 2 miles north of the Constant Prairie entrance. I have been a resident of Riley County for 45 years and at my current location for 35 years. I'm retired from Constant Prairie, Education Director for the Environmental Education Program. Emeritus Professor from the Department of Entomology at KSU. And probably the most important for this particular thing, I was a member of the steering committee and other committees that developed the Flint Hills Discovery Center. And all of the discussion around why it was important for the surrounding areas around Manhattan to stay rural came up during those discussions about building the Flint Hills Discovery Center. So the Constant Prairie, I'm going to start with that. We've heard this before, but its presence in our community adds a lot of value to the region, and should be protected for a whole number of reasons that people that perhaps don't know a lot about the research out there and the ecology of the area, what it adds to the value of the region, and it should be protected from unsightly developments, not only like the viewscape from the top of the hills, which by the way, there are places where you can see this site from Kansa Prairie from above because it's very high. And the Kansa Prairie Nature Trail, thousands of people come there every year, and it's very important for the Manhattan community, for the Flint Hills Discovery Center, for the state of Kansas, for the Flint Hills, that we have such an opening and such a draw to bring people into our area. It's not just Manhattan, Kansas. The city of Manhattan, Riley and surrounding counties, and the state of Kansas have put a great effort into engaging visitors coming to Kansas. The Flint Hills Discovery Center was the major attraction that required Manhattan to receive the star bonds for the development of the South End. The current and future vision of the Flint Hills Discovery Center is stated as a commitment to preserving the unique landscape of the Flint Hills, celebrating the ecology, the history, the culture of farming and ranching in the region. And we should protect this investment, which is a large investment, and aid the vision of the Manhattan community in the state of Kansas. The Evergy switching station would detract from the scenic value on McDowell Creek Road, a designated scenic byway, and many of the Ashland community and landowners in the area are responsible for the beauty of the ranches and farms that make McDowell Creek Road a scenic byway. I would like to say that I would be very pleased for you to protect the Ashland community as our elected leaders and have the Evergy group look at other places. So I have a very, very last comment that I would like to make to Jessica, wherever she is. Where are you?
You need to direct towards the board. Ma'am.
Okay.
You don't direct nothing towards the applicant. It's
All right, because it's the name that they have made for the substation as Kansa, the Kansa substation or switching station, which is using the name of an indigenous tribe, well, without their permission. And I have reached out to some people to find out whether they are concerned about this or not, and I have not heard back from them yet. But I would request that you not call it the Kansa switching station. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Kate Anderson, 1714 Houston Street. I am currently a senior at Manhattan High School. I am an officer of Environmental Club and compete on our school's environmental team. And for the past year, I have had the opportunity to conduct my own research at Kansa in partnership with K-State. And as stated before, I am just one of many researchers and student researchers that has been able to use Kansa to further our knowledge on tallgrass prairie. Evergy has stated that their project will not be impacting endangered and threatened species, but the tallgrass prairie is an endangered ecosystem. We are lucky to have the ability to have such an unique place so close to home. And as stated before, people come from all over the world to conduct research that they might not be able to do anywhere else here at Kansa. In addition, the love of Kansa that we can see in this room tonight is shared with the youth in our town. Lots of people at the high school love to go out to Kansa with friends. Environmental Club, we take people on nature hikes, helping younger people in our community connect with our local ecosystems. And with Evergy's project, there would be a lot of disruption to especially wildlife in the area. I have been studying predator-prey relationships at Kansa, and I know that a project like this would impact my research as well as the hundreds of other research projects currently going on. So this is why I'm recommending denial of the project. That's all I have.
Good evening. My name is Paul Varkey. I live at 4236 Grantham Drive, just north of St. George, Kansas. And on this day, when people are universally looking up, I think we should consider the spiritual aspects of all of this. Ashland Bottoms and McDowell Creek Road and is a Kansas scenic byway. Prominent along McDowell Creek Road is the Ashland Bottom Cemetery. Ashland community was founded in 1855. One of the founding residents was William Stone. His marriage to Matilda was the first marriage celebrated in that community. They farmed on McDowell Creek Road, or McDowell Creek, and in 1862, their infant daughter, Mary Elizabeth, died and was buried on their property. His wife, Matilda, was laid to rest next to their daughter in 1876. William Stone transferred the 2 acres where his wife and daughter were buried to the Ashland Township as a cemetery. William Stone died in 1923 at the age of 92 and was buried in Lot 104 of Ashland Cemetery. The surrounding property was purchased by the Ellis family from Mr. Flourish in 1942 and donated to the township, expanding and defining the cemetery boundaries. Jim and Lois Curry purchased additional land from the Ellises, which was added to the west for future needs. The proposed location of the Evergy switching station adjacent to the Ashland Bottom Cemetery is particularly troubling to me and people I love. For the last 25 years, I've had the wonderful blessing of serving as pastor of Ashland Community Church. Each time we drive by McDowell Creek Road is a spiritual experience due to the incomparable beauty of the valley. Each trip by the cemetery is deeply spiritual as we are filled with wonderful memories of those that are no longer with us but remain in our thoughts. There are people here this evening who have children, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, and neighbors in the cemetery as their final resting place. They feel an unspoken covenant with those buried there to maintain the cemetery as a place of respect. Cemeteries are really important in our culture and particularly in our Ashland community. The beautiful Ashland Cemetery is a place of goodbyes, remembrances, and the promise of Easter, the resurrection, and eternal life. The cemetery is maintained by volunteer assistants from the Ashland Bottoms 4-H Club, their leaders, parents, and other family members. They also decorate the cemetery and place flags on the graves of all veterans who have served our country, and Ashland holds an annual Memorial Day service in the cemetery, followed by a reception at the Ashland Community Church. The cemetery is made up of 272 lots, which are 8 feet by 15 feet. This includes 45 men and women who serve their community and country in all branches of service. Among them are those who served in the Civil War, Indian Wars, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The natural beauty of the cemetery is deeply moving. The quiet of Ashland Bottoms, the Kansa, trees, creeks, birds, wildlife are all part of why people choose to be buried there. Individuals not from Ashland Bottoms, following the burial of a family member or friend at the cemetery, have arranged to be buried there also. They are touched by the natural beauty and sense of peace. People are buried there from a variety of communities, churches, denominations, and religions. Some have chosen Ashland Cemetery as their final resting place, even though they moved away from the area years ago, they come back. Now, I would like to mention that last year when we were gathered here, Joyce Swallow was with us, and I believe she was 92. And she had really no business being here, except she was committed to the cemetery and her husband Clarence. Buried there. And now she's buried there.
Thank you.
And I would like to say too, that I was one who spoke up asking about a picture. I can't understand why we don't know what a switch station looks like, how tall it is, and how it's going to look there, so. And if you want me to leave, I will.
Good evening. Thank you for your service. These are hard jobs, I know. My name is Joy Swallow, and I am Joyce Swallow's daughter. My parents lived in Ashland all their married life, and they died at 90 and 91, 62 years of marriage. And I was raised in Ashland, and I own the house at 3800 McDowell Creek Road. I'm a second generation. And we have third and fourth generation family members who continue to enjoy this beautiful landscape. So I've lived other places and in the country, and nothing compares to the beauty of this original prairie. And it should be preserved. And the view corridors matter. They matter a lot. And I'm an architect by training, and many times I must come up with alternatives, multiple solutions with clients. Evergy is showing us very little creativity in their decision-making. To come back with essentially the same solution is really insulting. Evergy needs to makes decisions around multiple factors: dollars, expediency, and dividends paid to investors sum up their approach. Please consider alternative locations for the electrical, whatever this is, switching station. Balance all the factors, not just the quick, easy, cheap solution. Lastly, my parents are buried in the Ashland Cemetery. My mother passed away a year ago, and she had no business coming to this meeting. I think two people had to practically carry her in. And she died in May. And so my husband and I will also be buried in the Ashland Cemetery next to my parents. People care, and it's time to listen. We are stewards of this land. 2 years is nothing. It's not even a drop in the water. This is thousands of years of history that we look at in this prairie. And so we need to take special care of what we have and not lose it. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Kenny Goodyear, 4640 South 33rd. Thanks for the opportunity to talk tonight. My wife and I built a house on the west side of Ashland in 2002. And we thought ourselves really fortunate to find a place as beautiful as we did to build our last home. And we wanted to be part of the community, and so we got plots in the Ashland Cemetery. And we buried my wife there in October. So she's probably the most recent member of the Ashland Cemetery. It's one thing, I think, to have a burial plot in the cemetery, and another one to bury a loved one there. It brings home how sacred the place is, and when you stand there, it feels peaceful and quiet and serene. The idea of looking across the earth at switching stations is really disturbing. I think cemeteries are a place to honor the dead and the living, and this doesn't seem honoring. Then to realize that in the future there may be a set of poles and lines coming across the bottom end of our place would forever change the landscape. So I think there's some things worth preserving, and I think this is one of them. Thank you.
It's pretty humbling to follow these three, but at any rate, my name is Martha Seaton. I live at 3200 Shane Creek Lane. And we are grateful to the planning board and the township trustees for the work they have done regarding Evergy's latest Ashland substation or switching station proposal. We are cognizant of and grateful for Evergy's role in providing power essential to emergency control systems, as well as for the basic heating and cooling which permit us all to survive. Following the recent March 18th and April 1st, 2024 township meetings in Ashland Bottoms addressing Evergy's latest proposal, I am compelled to place greater emphasis on how such an installation would threaten the health and well-being of not only the Ashland citizenry, especially children, but also that of Kansas, the city of Manhattan, Riley County, the state of Kansas, and all living species who visit or call this area home. I believe a less populated location near a more industrial base should be found. Among other things, the peaceful vistas to which some of you have referred are important to the healthy functioning of hearts and nerves, especially when they include freedom from buzzing noises, however they might be perceived, which I understand in rainy weather actually increase near electrical installations. In dry weather, the very real fear of high wind sparks igniting fires can be equally alarming. We rural residents are known for our devotion to harmonious autonomy. Intruding on this cherished serenity is not conducive to mental or physical health. This slightly modified switching station would be much more than just an ear or an eyesore, believe me. On a number of other levels regarding our health and our well-being, worldwide scientific research regarding the negative repercussions traced to electromagnetic field proximity, for example, are more and more common. Over the past 50 years, especially for farming families who agonize about increasing climate extremes, such information regarding these influences can be overwhelming. So to be brief, I will mention findings in several of the published reviews read, which highlighted connections, mainly psychological and biological, between electromagnetic fields and the potential for health crises. Decreased production of melatonin, a hormone important to sleep, increased headaches, including migraines, severe depression leading to suicide, possible effects on our immune systems, including the disruption of lymphocytes, which fight cancer such as childhood leukemia, lymphomas, and other malignancies, and the calcium flow interference related to gene membranes, muscle contraction, and communication between dividing cells that, among other things, control cancer growth. Even cell division connected to egg fertilization has surfaced as a research topic related to electromagnetic field. The USA has no federal standards limiting the strength of electromagnetic fields regarding power lines or many other electrical appliances, including cars, nor do most states. We, the citizens of the world, are simply advised to increase the distance between ourselves and the source of power and to reduce the time we spend around power lines. But living near such sources implies dealing with electromagnetic fields 24/7. One of the earlier collaborative studies between the Veterans Administration Medical Center, SUNY Upstate Medical Center in Syracuse, New York, and Albrighton, England, concerning overhead high voltage lines and suicide, pointed out how electromagnetic field depend not only on understanding voltage and current, but also geometry, the vertical or horizontal plane. I'm almost, it's my last sentence, okay? May I?
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's one more sentence.
Okay, understanding voltage, but also geometry. The vertical or horizontal plane of Evergy's proposal came to mind. And so I would like to repeat, I believe a less populated location would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll try to be brief. My name is Kelly Argo. I'm at 915 Fremont Street in Manhattan. I've lived in Manhattan for 10 years and I've been a volunteer at Conza Prairie for about 6 years. Thousands of school children from across the state of Kansas come to visit Conza Prairie each year to learn about the value of the tallgrass prairie and the history of the land. Often when groups are taken up on the nature trail, we stop at a high point and look over the river bottom area. And we ask the kids, what do you see here? Tell me what you see. And they'll point out, we see the river there. Okay, yeah, good. And I see the town over here. Okay, well, why would the town be by the river? Well, you need the water. And okay, we see some farmlands over here. And kids are perceptive. They pick up on what they see, and we ask them, well, why? Why would these things be here? And we have conversations, and what those kids see tells the story of who we are and what we value, the decisions that we make. And I appreciate too that there was a photo from the nature trail included in the presentation. It's actually not the highest point. I'd actually go a little further beyond that and actually get a better view of the river bottom there, see a little bit more. But I think that including the substation there would have a profound impact on how these kids understand what is important to us. It changes the story of who we are and what we value, and it becomes a conversation of, well, kind of let that piece go, I guess. That's maybe not as important over there. This is important to me because I said that I lived in Manhattan for about 10 years, but I grew up in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of the Dallas area. And Collin County used to be quite rural in character when I was born, but over my lifetime, it was totally taken up by development and sprawl. Electrical substations are very known and intimate, but that development happened just like that. Overnight. And I actually chose to make this part of Kansas my home because I see how much people value this place. They have a sense of place. They have a history, connection to the land. And I quickly saw how North Texas became really a non-place because of rapid encroaching development. So last year when this presentation was brought forward, and I do appreciate that Evergy made some changes to the proposal. The language was changed last year. It was substation. It says substation in the agenda tonight, but now it says switching station. I noticed the close-up photos of the structure that made everyone gasp last year were in the presentation, so I think that's why we didn't see any images here. Also, the representative from Evergy says that our process here works for reviewing. So great, I say let's let the process work. It was mentioned in the previous presentation that rural character is a perception unique to the individual, it's subjective. But I see here tonight many individuals who believe that this proposal is not compatible with rural character. So I say let's let the process work and ask Evergy to get more creative. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jan Olivnik, and I live at 5011 of Gallo Creek Road. You might not be in the 1,000 feet thing, but we're just outside of it. We're going to be looking at that out of our kitchen window every day. We're off our deck while we're trying to enjoy the evening. So it's going to be right there in front of us the whole time. So then, as it's mentioned before, a lot of people from all over the world come to the Conza. I've been a docent at the Conza since 1995 when we first moved out here. And so people really park to go hiking. They're coming out to see the serenity of the prairie and Conza and everything. And so when they're coming in there, they're going to see that big station. And I saw in their reports, those poles are gonna be 65 to 75 feet tall. And how are they gonna hide that? Are they gonna put big giant trees in? I don't think so. But, so anybody coming into the Kanza is gonna see that. They're gonna hike the Kanza, and they will be seeing the station from up on the hills. And when they come back after a beautiful hike and walk and everything, enjoying the prairie, the serenity of it, as they're leaving, as they're going down that road, as you saw a few of the pictures, they're gonna be looking right at that station. It's gonna be from where they parked all the way out. It's gonna be smack right there, straight from the road. So they're gonna be seeing all of that. So there's not gonna be, after enjoying the prairie and everything, it's what they're gonna be seeing. I think a big detriment to their whole process of coming out here to enjoy the prairie, and so it's gonna be good. Thank you.
Well, John Farley, 5130 Canal Creek Road. I didn't come prepared to talk, but it just seems that I would ask you to deny this request and ask Evergy to reconsider their location, possibly to the Stag Hill area, where I believe their real power needs are going to be. I think that's an area that Manhattan's going to want to grow, and I think there's going to be a huge commercial residential initiative out that way. I don't know what the logistics will be to move it 3 miles as the crow flies, but I think that might be a better alternative for them. People in that area will benefit from selling their land commercially. I don't think they're near the resistance that they would here. Thank you.
Is there any other taker?
Raleigh Acres, 2900 West 32nd. I am a landowner within 1,000 feet. Everybody's taking a heavy hit tonight, somewhat well deserved. You've listened to the comments of friends and neighbors, and I would join with them in asking that you deny their request. Thank you very much.
Liz Finch, 1715 Fairview Avenue. I really appreciate the time that you have taken. It's a late night, and I appreciate hearing what Evergy has come prepared to say. I think both can be true. We can be true to Manhattan's growth and the need for the potential that is coming to have reliable energy. I lived in Austin, Texas during the crisis of the energy outage that the state of Texas was on the brink of losing complete electrical power for a month. So living through that, I understand the importance of having reliable energy, and I appreciate the work you have put into this. However, this community has spent so much in protecting and preserving the Kanza Prairie. You cannot walk on it without seeing signs that say, don't even step off this path because this is detrimental to the biology and what is there. It is naive to think that an energy center would not cause some sort of effect ecologically to that. Both can be true. We can protect Kanza and we can move this somewhere else, and we can have reliable energy for Manhattan going forward. Please be good stewards of the land. This is our opportunity to show that. Don't take that for granted. Evergy, I know you have the resources and the creativity and the ability to find a location that's further away from such a valuable resource as the Kanza Prairie. I think it's important to have what you have to offer. Please just move it somewhere else. Thank you for your time.
Is there any other special interest parties that would like to speak? If not, Oh.
Oops, 5 minutes out.
Okay. Any more? Yeah. It's okay. You just about got left out there.
He waited for me to turn it off.
I was waiting for the bell.
Okay.
Kevin Parsons, 3005 Shank Creek Lane, and I'm just going back to where we started the public conversation. What is the purpose of the switch station? I wired my house, I put a switch up to a light. It's worked for 37, I mean, these lines have gone across there for years, and they're working fine. So what is the purpose of this switching station? I don't think Evergy did very do either. I love Bob's presentation, every other word, I was gonna count how many times he said substation and make a point to it. But I gave up counting how many times he said substation. We're talking about something that's gonna become a substation. There's no stopping it after it becomes a switching station. But what is the point of the switching station if you're not gonna do something with it? The lines go through there, why do we need to switch them? Gonna move them one way or the other, I don't understand. Somebody needs to lay that out to me. I have a fear that it will become a substation. We're gonna run a line over to Ogden, we're gonna run a line over to wherever, because that's gonna be something that they own, that property they own, they can do what they want. Yes, we'll do eminent domain possibly for the lines. But my grandkids going over to Ogden, getting good years, going to go right through his front window, in my opinion. My grandkids gonna be underneath it, all these 9 other kids are gonna be affected by it as well too. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be a switch station today. What's it gonna be years from now? What's it gonna be years from now? If not something bigger. And otherwise, I hadn't been working fine up to this point. Thank you.
Is there any other special interest parties that would like to speak?
Becky Land, 3550 McDowell Creek Road. I have a couple of concerns in addition to the ones already stated. We have a community center and a church close together. And although in Wabunsee County, the proposal, presentation person said that she did not know of plans to put in big lines across the county. And she is indicating the same thing now. And 6 months from now, those lines might be going in. And I have a very concern about that, just because she doesn't have knowledge at this point that it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen if it gets approved. So I think we need to stop it here and now. I want to mention the fact that the bikers, both bicycles, tons and tons of bicycles, but motorcycles too, which I don't appreciate their noise, but I live right on the road. But those individuals also, in addition to the other tourists and cars, come out on the scenic drive because they enjoy the scenic drive. And I think that's important to mention. There's another group out there that appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other special interest parties that would like to come forth at this time? One more time, is there anybody else that would like? All right. At this time, we will have rebuttal from the applicant.
No, can I have one? No, I don't think so. I think she gets whatever.
Good evening, Jessica Keck, Evergy 8 in South Kansas. I have some notes to flip through, so I'll probably jump back and forth. I apologize for that.
That's fine.
So one of the first ones was that we were denied a year ago. We were not denied for this location. We actually withdrew our application for the initial location, knowing that we were gonna change it based on some of the comments. That original application went through the process and got denied. We didn't even really make a presentation except to say that it was removed. So this one has never been presented, it's being presented tonight. And it was based on some feedback from the planning commission meeting. This will not be seen at night. There's not gonna be lights on it, so you're not gonna be able to see it at night. There's been a lot of comments about the Konza Prairie, and I understand the significance of it. That was part of the reason why we went north. Didn't want any lines coming out of the Konza Prairie that are not already there. There's been lines there for at least 60 years. They don't distract from the visitation going to the Konza Prairie now. I agree, we were out there, it was gorgeous. The transmission lines that are currently there kind of blend into what you're looking at now. That line is currently about 300 feet east of the existing cemetery as well. I understand the concerns, but we made a concerted effort to not go towards the Konza Prairie. We made the effort to go north because of that, because we understand the nature of it. Evergy contributes a lot to the natural resources and environmental protection. Outside of our group, obviously, but we have a group within our company that does a lot of environmental protection. So it's important to us, which is why we've gone this route. We understand the need and the concern, and we sympathize with that, but we still need to provide that power. Like I said, let me see where we're at with it. Inside the switching station, the structures are about 15 feet tall. So they're not gonna be huge structures. The transmission lines that are currently there, I don't know exactly how tall they probably are, 50, 60 feet. What is a switching station? Like I said, it switches power from one source to another. You had mentioned earlier, Mr. Peck, about what's the plan? And I said, yes, we'll have a line. I don't know where it's gonna be. We have to have an alternate source that allows us to switch power from one source to another source. We have the 115 already. Yeah, we'll have to have another source. I don't know exactly where that's going because we don't plan that until after we get the location. And then we have public outreach and community involvement. We go through the process, for a reason. It's you say it's affordability, but that goes back to the ratepayers. So there's a process and the reason why we do it. Yeah, there'll be a line, but yes, we'll have a lot of community involvement at that point as well. So we can change structure types, we can change structure material to make it blend more with the community. And we try to do those factors when we can. So we take that all into consideration when we're doing this. And that, I believe, is all I had. Do you have any questions for me?
Harry,
Now,
Joe,
the tallest equipment in the switching station, you said was how tall?
About 15 feet.
15?
It's not a substation. The substation will have the transformers.
No, this is switching
It's a
station.
switching station. So the structure,
Your thing that I'm looking at here says it's 35 feet tall.
that's probably the dead end poles that tie into the transmission line. So the actual switch. You have to tie into this
you got it down.
switch. Yeah, you have to downstep it. So I'm sorry, the actual switching equipment is not 15 feet tall.
Okay, it also says on here about pole heights range from 65 to 75.
That's a transmission line.
This is already there now. Okay, thank you.
Jack, you have that?
I got it. Awesome.
I think there was a comment made about producing fires from this switching station. Nothing like that can happen with this switching station, to your knowledge, or anything.
To our knowledge, no.
Okay.
We obviously try to build them in the safest way possible to minimize all of that. We don't want to.
Sure, okay.
But we do have a fire pre-plan that we'll file with the county as well.
Okay.
Prior to it.
All right, otherwise I don't have any other questions, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, next step on our public hearing is to close the public hearing and go into our deliberation mode. So I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we close our public hearing and go into our deliberation mode. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Start with you, Eric.
Well, thank you.
Just tell us like it is.
Yeah.
How you feel about it. That's why we're
My,
here.
my concern is future expansion, of course, and we know that's gonna happen. Will we have control of it? Some. I don't know that we'll have total control of it because of the demand for infrastructure. But there is still that threat, but what we're considering now is what's on the table here right now.
Okay. Joe?
How did I find myself in this position?
You what?
Says, how do we find ourselves in this position?
I don't know.
We got a good presentation from Evergy and a lot of public opposition. Yeah.
Okay, Jack?
Well, I will say, I understand the need for a more reliable electrical infrastructure. But I am also concerned about if this goes in, what's gonna happen in the future. I think it could be very detrimental to that area. I think we need to be very mindful of that.
Okay. Where do I begin? So, just took some notes that caught my attention. So I know what the Ashland Bottom means to the people of Ashland Bottoms. I've lived in Raleigh County all of my life. My mom grew up most of her life in the southern end of Ashland Bottoms. She talked about it fondly. Not to be disrespectful or anything. We heard a lot about the cemetery this evening. As that being said, as you all know, there's a new fire station being built right beside the cemetery. And as in the last meeting, when we were here a year ago, I brought it up, and the Raleigh County Fire District come for a special use, condition use for that fire station. We didn't have nobody here. Nobody opposed it. Now, once again, we found ourselves in this same position for this switch station, which is going to be built to, I mean, the way I feel, it's in a better position than where it was at the beginning. I will say that, yes, Evergy, you guys stepped up, though, and I'll just be honest, the last presentation was what I want to say. It didn't have the nuts and bolts as what you have presented tonight. There's a lot more clarification. I feel that you went back and did your homework. I think once again, I know there was some comments made about, this, about the road being there going down to the switch station. The switch station, I mean, that's sitting 800 and some feet off the road. I'm going to be more worried. I mean, I've drove Ashland, not every day like you guys do, but when I do, the first thing I'm going to know when I go by, I'm going to see that new fire station. I'm going to miss the cemetery too. I'm going to miss that substation because that fire station sitting right there on the adjacent property. Nobody said anything about that tonight. Going back to this line, this line being put in, or switch station being put in, as the applicant said, we need more energy or more electricity to help with into the city of Manhattan. Manhattan's growing. Hey, what about our electric cars that we're all going to have to be driving here before long? I'm being an devil advocate because I'm not going to ever drive one, but there are people out here that, and this is my opinion only, there's people out here that think, well, we got to have electric cars. We got to save the earth, Well, if you don't have the electricity coming into Manhattan, how are you going to charge your electric cars? So think about that. Nobody said anything about that this evening. One thing, and I guess, and I will ask the applicant, the name of the switch station was brought up as the Konza switch station. Was there ever, I don't ever see a name in this that was put on that. If I did, I missed it.
It was on the.
So, you mean come up there?
Yeah, please. Maybe you can explain. I might have missed it.
I had that down in my note and I completely forgot.
Yes.
It was Konza, a year ago when we came in, we realized it's a bad idea. It is now Riley switching station,
Okay, thank you.
Riley County switching station, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, that was one I guess I had that wrote down here. I didn't ask you earlier. Okay, thank you. So, it appears to me, and I'm throwing out things that everybody's been saying here this evening. It seems to me that the residents know a lot more than what the applicant knows about the power lines coming in. Yes, Jack, I understand. And I guess I'm afraid of that too. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on in this situation in here. And as Joe said, here we're back again. Yes, we know that the Board of County Commissioners denied the approval of it the last time. Bob, are you still awake?
Barely.
I have a question. I would like for you to elaborate on the LRD 316 that was brought up earlier. The LDR, yes. It was stated that there was only 4 of the 6 conditions. Can you
Those are criteria.
Public hearing's closed, sorry. Is that true that there wasn't meeting the criteria of the LDR?
Well, I'm bringing the
Okay,
LDR up.
okay,
So
all right.
P16. Grade 16. These are the criteria you're talking about. We'll go through them one at a time.
Point A.
The review authority may recommend approval or denial of a special use. Special use may be approved only upon an affirmative finding by the BOCC that all of the following criteria have been met. This is not BOCC, this is the planning board. 1, you can take a look at the.
You're advising the BOCC.
Yes, absolutely. You read this, or say it again. Special use may be approved only upon an affirmative finding by the BOCC. All the following criteria have been met. We can go through every one of those and see if, in their opinions, if the criteria has been met.
Bob is the point that, well, honestly, whatever the planning board decides, the Board of County Commissioners makes the final decision.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's been times when we do something, they've been denied it.
Absolutely.
Denied something and they've approved it, so.
This is just like a rezone. You're making a recommendation.
Yeah.
So, I guess in my last, thank you, Bob. In my last comment, it was brought up about impacting the property value. I'm around the proposed site. I guess that's I don't think that's probably true. That's one of the things. So, but anyhow, I guess my biggest fear and my concern is for the future of what could happen. And, you know, it's, through that community, we don't know that. Nobody knows that at this time. So I guess that's an unknown that is, I feel that's a concern between this. So, with that being said, I don't have, do you guys got anything you guys want to reiterate or anything? Any other discussion?
I thought it was interesting that in all the facts and opinions that's been presented tonight, there was no other proponents for the project. I don't know where that's at, but I didn't hear any.
Right. So. So I guess our next, I'm just getting some thoughts together here, whatnot. I guess I'm going to, don't guess, I am going to ask on our vote through a roll call, so I know what the vote will be. So. So do I have a motion for approval or do I have a motion for denial?
Caution the board.
Yes, sir.
Make that, make the motion and as a recommendation to the Board of County Commission.
Right, it's okay, so it does not really say on here that it's it just says approval, but it is approval to the Board of County Commissioners. Recommendation, I'm sorry, of approval. Yep.
Or denial.
Yeah. It's a recommendation of approval or denial to the Board of County Commissioners. So that means, like Bob said a minute ago, I mean, we can approve it, we can deny it, but they got the final say on it. Right. Yeah. So. All right, at this time, yeah, so, yep, sorry.
I'm gonna get the ball rolling.
Okay.
I'm gonna move to recommend approval of the request for a special use to construct and operate an electrical switching station at a site generally located approximately 2,000 feet southwest of West 32nd Avenue and 1,395 feet north of McDowell Creek Road, Section 12, Township 11 South, Range 7 East, Ashland Township.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? The motion fails due to a lack of second. So therefore, that tells me that it has been denied. All those in favor? Jack? Well, yeah. So it's been denied. It failed for a lack of second, so.
New motion.
So a new motion. Okay, we'll move on to a new motion.
I move to recommend denial of the request for special use to operate the electrical switching station to a site generally located approximately 2,000 foot southwest of West 32nd Avenue and 1395 feet north of McDowell Creek Road, Section 12, Township 11 South, Range 7 East, Ashland Township, for the following reasons. Until and unless the applicant can provide what they plan for future development in that location.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded, it's been moved and seconded to recommend denial of the request of the special use to construct and operate an electrical switch station at the site generally located approximately 2,000 feet southwest of West 32nd Avenue and 1,395 feet north of McDowell Creek Road, Section 12, Township 11, Range 7, East. Oh, yes, 11 South. Range 7 East, Ashland Township, for the following reasons, until or less the future development of the power lines, knowledge of the power lines. All those in favor? Jack? I'm gonna do a roll call.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
You're in favor? Joe? Yes. Eric?
Of course.
John? Motion carries 4-0 for the denial. All right, that concludes. Oh, Bob, you got a recommend or meeting for the Board of County Commissioners?
Yes, the Board of County Commissioners will hear this request May 2nd at 11 a.m. in these chambers.
Right, thank you. All right, so
I'm gonna find my agenda or whatever.
Somebody moved to adjourn.
so I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, stand up or say aye.
Ma'am, I'm just.
You can have mine. I don't need.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you're perfectly fine.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.